We are now live.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 25th meeting of the Albemarle County Planning Commission. We will begin by establishing quorum. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Firehawk?
Here.
Mr. Claiborne?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Thank you. I have Mr. Carazana and Ms. King are not here right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move right along then. We have now established quorum and we're opening the meeting. The first item on every agenda is comment by the public on matters that are not on tonight's agenda. So if you came to speak to something on the agenda, not yet, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on any county matter that's not on tonight's agenda? Mr. Williamson.
It's good to be with you in person.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Neil Williamson, and I serve as the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, a privately funded public policy organization focused on Central Virginia's local governments. Last week, I spoke to the Albemarle County Economic Development Authority about the cost of delay for development projects. In those comments, we explained that project carrying costs typically run between $7,200 to $9,500 per month for every $1 million of valuation. That means a $10 million project can carry costs of up to $95,000 a month. Why am I telling you this? Because, knowingly or not, you're part of the problem. Virginia State Code has several statutory deadlines that you guys always meet that force timely planning commission action in development-related matters. Currently, once the Community Development Department, CDD, has an application to move forward to you, they schedule it about 3 months out. Then they wait for you to have your public hearing, and then they schedule the Board of Supervisors public hearing another 3 months out. That's 6 months. The result is a 6-month delay on something that could be actionable. For a $10 million project, those 6 months add up to $570,000. If Albemarle County truly wants development to occur in the development areas, it has two clear options, probably more than two, but I only thought of two, to remedy this. Number one, you could, as I know Ms. Firehawk is well aware, hold a joint public hearing with the Board of Supervisors, as the city of Charlottesville does. More likely, you could schedule, the staff could schedule the Board of Supervisors public hearing when they schedule your public hearing, and schedule it 3 weeks out so that you can have time for any kind of advertising and any kind of changes you guys input to the program. If you do this, you could eliminate 6 weeks of work and reduce carrying costs by $150,000 on that $10 million project. Some might call this low-hanging fruit. The Free Enterprise Forum calls on the Planning Commission to direct staff to investigate this applicant timing concern and to improve the use of a new planning device, a calendar, to fix this problem. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Is there anyone online, Carolyn?
Ma'am.
Okay. All right, that ends the public comment on matters not on the agenda. We'll next move on to the consent agenda. We have approval of the draft minutes from August 11th. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve in 2 seconds. Any discussion? All right, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Firehawk?
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That is adopted. Now we will move on to the first public hearing of the night, which is SB-2026-0001 Albemarle Yoga Retreat Center. May we have the staff report?
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Ben Lopacker, and I'm a planner with the Planning Division of Albemarle County Community Development. Tonight, I'll be giving the staff presentation for the Albemarle Yoga Retreat Special Use Permit. The property is located in southern Albemarle County along Secretary Sand Road, approximately 1 mile south of the intersection of Secretary Sand Road and Green Creek Road. The surrounding area is of rural character with a variety of rural area uses, including low-density single-family residential, forests and open space, and agricultural and forestal uses. The parcel is currently zoned rural areas and designated rural areas on the AC 44 comprehensive plan. While critical slopes and water protection ordinance buffers do exist on the site, the proposed development and structures associated with it wouldn't impact either, and there would be no disturbance within critical slopes or water protection ordinance buffers. Shown before you is the concept plan that was submitted by the applicant, including the proposed campsites, the retreat building, as well as some other amenities for people utilizing the boarding camp. The factors for consideration for special use permits are shown per the analysis included in the staff report. Staff finds that the proposed boarding camp will cause no substantial detriment to adjacent parcels, will not change the character of the area, will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the chapter, and is consistent with the AC 44 comprehensive plan. The request also includes two special use permits or two special exceptions, one for grade for vehicle access aisles not adjacent to parking spaces, and the other being curb and gutter in parking areas along travel ways. In summary, staff has identified the following positive aspects of the request, those being the use is consistent with the review criteria for special use permits contained in the zoning ordinance. The majority of the property would remain forested, and no detrimental impacts to adjoining properties are anticipated. Staff was not able to identify any concerns at this time, and staff does not object to the special exceptions. Staff has included the following conditions for the special use permit for consideration, those being, which include limiting the amount of events per calendar year, establishing quiet hours, and preserving buffering between the use and the property boundaries. I'd be happy to revisit any slides and take any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, commissioners, we'll start down there.
No questions.
I was just wondering if thank you for the presentation. Just if the special exception applications were also going to be, is that next or do that roll?
So those would be acted on by the Board of Supervisors. They were included in the presentation just for the information.
Quickly,
for
yeah.
the commission.
I was just curious more what it meant with the vehicle access aisles not adjacent to parking spaces. It's just I know what each of those words means individually, but maybe together what the grading for vehicle access aisles might look like and be like.
Yeah. Yeah, so the vehicle access aisles, and you said it was one of the special exceptions, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So basically the vehicle access aisles not adjacent to parking spaces limits the aisles to no more than a 10% grade without a special exception granted by the Board of Supervisors, which is what they are applying for.
So this may be a little more than 10%.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
Okay.
It would not be allowed to exceed 16%, but they would in areas have it over 10% is what the proposal contains.
That's what I gathered. I just kind of wanted to double check thank you.
Mr. Murray?
Yeah, the Secretary Sand Road right now, that's unpaved, correct?
It is paved.
Oh,
It is
that
paved.
section is paved.
Yes, sir. It's a paved public road maintained by the Virginia Department of Transportation.
Okay.
I think you are correct that there is a section of Secretary Sand, but I think it'd be Old Sand Road.
Old Sand.
Yeah,
right.
because Secretary Sand's paved all the way down to Route 6. And then it's Old Sand that kind of comes off the side that's unpaved. So
Okay.
that's much farther to the south than this property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this question might be better suited for the applicant, but I'll start here. And it was around the quiet hours. Could you talk a little bit about how that range came up? And I'm asking because in the summertime, it gets dark at like 9:15. So it's like 45 minutes before lights are out. So could you talk a little bit about how you guys came up with that range?
So this range is consistent with the zoning ordinance or with the county's noise ordinance, as well as other boarding camps that have recently been approved within the county.
Thank
To clarify on that, so I didn't realize that the county has an ordinance that talks about quiet hours and has a set time for those.
So it limits the amplification of outdoor music during certain hours. And that's
Okay.
consistent with what the condition is.
But the planning commission could determine that a earlier quiet hour was appropriate.
That is correct. Yes, it would just be a modification of the condition.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because in the rural area, with a lot of agriculture, people go to bed earlier. So it just might be more appropriate to have an earlier hour for that. But we'll leave that for now. Did you have any questions?
Ms. Commissioner Firehawk,
Yes.
the commission would just need to be able to find that it was mitigating an impact of the special permit being requested.
Understood. Thank you. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions for staff, we'll hear next from the applicant. Is the applicant present and preparing a presentation? Mr. Shimp.
Good evening, members of the commission. Justin Shimp. I'm the engineer for this project. I'm representing the Gates family. I'm only going to speak for a moment, let them come up and tell you a little bit about their vision for the property and how they came to the site. But let me go through a couple slides here. Just to begin with, we've reviewed the staff proposed conditions. We have no objection to those. Those all seem very reasonable to us. So we're happy to answer other questions related to changes in those at the end of this presentation. This is a quick just rendering of the building proposed. This essentially, it's a house, slightly large house that could accompany these events that are wellness related. Yoga is sort of their thing, but there's a variety of other wellness retreat options that work well in these rural settings, trying to get people out into nature away from their busy lives and enjoying the sounds of nature. I don't think anyone here wants to be playing loud music at all, this sort of event. But we understand that's a condition relative to the day camp use, certainly not something that we're interested in doing.
Okay.
Site, this is on Secretary Sand Road. We went over that a moment ago. You'll see it's pretty much surrounded by forest land on our side of Secretary Sand Road. Some pictures of the site. So this driveway in the far right is an existing farm road that was cut in. And the reason we have the special exception is that road is, I think, 13 or 14% at its steepest. And essentially, to meet the county requirement of 10%, we'd have to tear out a bunch more trees, probably grade over critical slopes, and essentially cause more impacts than are necessary. And 16% is the common standard for a rural area driveway. So in light of the fact that we could not achieve the 10% without substantially more impact and detriment to the woodlands there, that's why we applied for the exception. The existing parcel, you can see, you saw the aerial map, there's a couple existing roads coming in. We're potentially trying to use that infrastructure for this project. And I'll flip to the next page. See, they come in off Secretary Sands, down the hill, and there is an easement. The Gates own the adjacent property to the bottom of the page here. I think they have thoughts of that being a potential residence one day for them, but they own that parcel as well. It's not part of the special use permit. Proposed layout. And you can sort of see those two roads basically follow the existing infrastructure in. How the structure sits on grade, has a basement walkout essentially. And then we have defined the camping areas, picnic area, labyrinth, just sort of nature areas in the space. I'll let them speak to that in more detail. In phase one, we talk about tent camping sites, and then the hope is there are times to develop some small cabin type structures that would be for the folks who come to stay for the events. And We don't know a timing build out of that necessarily, but they do want to start with the event building and then work their way up with camping for the project. Couple more blow-ups. This is the architectural elevations again. That's a very typical sort of rural area, I think, building. And we have a couple blow-ups of the parking you can see there. The special exception about the curb and gutter is really about just not having, concrete curbs, gutter, and drainage. This is really a very rural kind of esque feeling site. And so we think gravel is more appropriate. And for the small amount of impervious area, we could manage the drainage without curb and gutter, basically. One last, just illustrative of the lack of visibility. This view is a rendering was done. It probably shows more than you see the building, honestly, but the grade picture in the top is pretty useful. And then it demonstrates how far below the road the structure is and the depth of trees. That's 11 to 13, so over 200 feet of trees between the structure area and the road are maintained with this plan. We also have back on this page, our attention to one more item, the area at the far left of your screen there shows the existing buffer of the stream. There's a proposed open space of 14.5 acres there. So entire back portion, so 50% of the property essentially would be untouched in this application, just left as woods. So with that, I'll invite the Gates up, Chris. Let him share for a moment about the specifics of the vision here. I think it's a great project, a great thing for our rural area. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, technical nature that may arise.
All right, just please state your name and location in the county.
Sure. Christopher Gates. We live in Northern Virginia right now, but we own the property in question. Is that sufficient for that part? Okay. Good evening. My name is Chris Gates. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. My wife Jamie and I are the owners of the property and the people behind the Wellness Retreat Center that we're here tonight to talk about. Part of my work is involved working with other veterans around healing, personal growth, meditation, and reconnecting with themselves. The Retreat Center is in many ways an extension of that work that means a great deal to me and work that I've dedicated the rest of my time on this planet to. Additionally, Charlottesville has been part of our family story for a long time. Jamie and I met here when I was a West Point cadet and she was a student here at UVA. Her family has deep connections to the area for years. While her parents were able to attend, we were UVA season ticket holders. Our children grew up coming down here on Saturdays for football games. And while we currently live in Northern Virginia, we love Charlottesville. We intend to permanently move here in the next few years once our children complete high school. They're currently juniors in high school. We believe there is an underserved need for healing, coaching, meditation, yoga, and small intentional retreats. We found this property. We fell in love with this part of Albemarle County, the forest, the quiet, the rural landscape, the view of Appleberry Mountain, and the feeling you get when you're out there. And we don't intend or want to change that. Preserving that is fundamental to what we're trying to create. There's also something about the history of the land that has become deeply symbolic to me. One of the long-term neighbors down the road told me that the property had been timbered so many times that the land has really struggled to recover. He said they even tried dropping fertilizer from the air to help the trees grow, and they really haven't grown. That didn't really succeed. And I think that was one of the reasons that the property owners cut it up and decided to sell the property. And I couldn't help but see the parallel. Some of the people who come to retreats like ours may feel the same way. Life has taken a lot out of them, and they may wonder whether they can still grow, change, or heal. So there's something symbolic to me in creating a place for those people on a piece of land that it itself needs love, care, patience, and restoration. So our intention is to care for both. The majority of the property will remain forested with roughly 14.5 acres designated as conservation area. We want to steward the land, not conquer it, because the rural beauty and quiet part are what makes that healing possible. We also own the adjacent lot, and we intend to basically keep that undeveloped except for our permanent home here in the Albemarle area. So ultimately, we hope to create a place where people can slow down, reconnect with themselves and with nature, and leave a little better than when they arrived. And over the years, we hope to leave the land a little better than we found it. So thank you for your consideration of the project.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant? We'll start with Mary Catherine. No, I have one or two, but anyone else?
I just, we got a letter that wasn't opposed to, your proposal, but it was a neighbor who said that they like to shoot targets,
Sure.
with fairly loud guns. And I just wondered how that impacts, yoga classes. in Virginia.
I think they'll take place inside. I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to be an issue. I think that same one mentioned children. The events are not for children.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
generally 18 and up, so
Great.
I'm not concerned about any of the things they raised in their letter to you all.
Cool. Thanks much.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is more for Justin Shebb. So you mentioned the steepness of the driveway and I appreciate like trying to minimize disturbance on that. But of course, when you have a steep slope and a gravel driveway, it's prone to erosion. So what measures do you plan to take to prevent erosion, given the steepness of the gravel driveway that's being proposed?
So, well, even though this is a very rural sort of use, it in fact does have a site plan component still. So even though it's gravel, the county has essentially drainage review of that. And so we would typically put in cross pipes, ditches, all that is required. So even though it's gravel, we have to, even though you might think this is sort of a small little use in the woods, the technical part of that road goes to the same review as if I was building a shopping center. So essentially there'll be drainage review during the process. And there may be, depending on the circumstances, sometimes there will be some pavement or consideration for surface treatment in the steepest portion. But that's generally something we work out with the county engineer in a site plan review. But it is a concern, right? Not only is it dust, but it's also erosion. And then for their purposes, maintenance cost, right? So those are things we take into consideration, not at this point typically, but because it's a site plan, all the drainage gets reviewed at that stage, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you both for the presentation. Just confirming for the campsites, will that be open fire? Is that the intention?
Well, I think there was a note in the staff report about, there's actually a rule, right, about fires in this particular special use permit. And you all maybe can clarify that better than I can.
Yes, so there are supplementary regulations for outdoor fire pits, which would have to be met through approval by the fire department. And that would need to be as part of the site plan. Fire would look at that, the fire department, and they would analyze whether the measures being taken meet their standards.
So is the answer yes, or?
I think there could be. I guess I don't know if you all thought that through, but I think this is not a campground like, you go to and stay with your family, right? You make a fire every night. This is sort of like an organized event space. You go here, and if there was a fire, it'd probably be put on by them, the host of the property, and not, let's say, an individual camper out there like you might in a typical campground. So I think, I don't know what the rules are exactly. Certainly we have to follow them, but I think as a uses go, any fires, I think, are managed by you all on your own property. Because they have a vested interest, obviously, in protecting it too.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I'm asking because I'm wondering, does there need to be a condition around complying with seasonal burn bans and droughts, or does that not matter since this isn't a traditional campground?
It was staff's opinion that would be covered through compliance with the fire department when the site plan is submitted. Any sort of issues with that, the fire department would bring up in their review.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I had a few questions for the applicants. Mr. Shimp, you're off the hook. This is more around the programming that you plan to have. So are you envisioning people come for the weekend and then they participate in various yoga activities? Or are you thinking that there's daily classes a few times a day? I'm trying to get a sense of the rhythm of visitation to your site and the numbers of people.
Sure. I think initially it's for day classes. And the reason for the camping component is to not have to come back into town and you can kind of stay in the environment. So I think initially day classes. After that, I think we would love to be able to host people overnight where they could come in the morning and do morning yoga and have classes. That's essentially the idea.
Okay. Do you have a sense of, like, if you're wildly successful, let's say you are, what's the sort of visitation that you expect to be coming and going from your site? If you were sort of at your dream capacity?
Oh, I mean, we are limited in the proposal to a max of 50 participants.
Okay.
So I would be overjoyed if we had that many. Actually, we're not anticipating that the retreats would be that large at all. I think we prefer to work at a smaller number, but
Okay.
yeah. So
All right,
that's
so it's-
been in accordance with the, VDOT and other things for the.
Right,
road,
and it's really is for yoga. You're not planning to have birthday parties or other, it's just really just quiet.
Yeah,
low-key
no
yoga.
weddings, no
Okay.
birthday parties. This is a space to reconnect with nature, to take classes, to do healing work, just to get better and just have a place where people can just escape it for a little bit and again, enjoy the view and,
Sure.
walk the labyrinth and just kind of get the time away from everyone's busy schedules and lives that we want to provide. And that's been beneficial to me as a veteran and the people that I've worked with. So we're just trying to bring a little more of that and have a space to do that.
Sure.
Right now in Northern Virginia, I send them right back out into the busy world when they're done with these things. And that's not preferred. Being able to have a space where they can enjoy the calm is what we're looking for and why we bought the property.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I don't think we have any more questions for you. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, so next we're going to hear from members of the public who might want to comment on this proposal, and I'll provide the rules for that. First of all, you're limited to 3 minutes. You'll see a light go on the podium when it's time to start. That's your green light. We're starting the timing. Yellow light will come on when you're almost out of time, and then the red light, that's it. We'll cut you off. So the other thing is if members of the audience, this is true for both public hearings we're having this evening, if you agree with something someone said, you can certainly raise your hand in support, but we don't have clapping or exclamations of sounds from the audience. We try to keep this very ordered. So with that, I will now welcome anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this proposal. Anyone want to comment on this particular proposal for the yoga center? Right, I don't see anyone rushing the podium. Is there anyone online
No,
to
ma'am.
comment?
No.
Okay, well, with that, the applicant usually has a chance to rebut or add to any comments they heard, but since we heard none, I assume the applicant doesn't need to come back up. Okay, great, thank you. We'll close the public hearing and take it to the commission for deliberation. Commissioners. Any concerns with this proposal? All right, I don't hear any great concern. I think it was a very well-prepared application, very clear as to what its intent was. It seems to be very low impact. It is in my district, so I know there's a lot of yoga aficionados lurking all over Southern Albemarle. I can personally name them. So I'm sure there will be a demand for this, in addition to those stressed out Charlottesvillians.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking also is that, and I certainly hope the business does very well, but even if it doesn't, what we're leaving behind is essentially one large house that won't go to waste.
Right, exactly. And it looks like it has a relatively light footprint on the land overall. So since it is in my district, I'm going to take the prerogative to make the motion, which is what I usually like to do, is let the person whose district it is. So with that, I move to recommend approval of SP 2026-0001 Albreen Yoga Retreat with the conditions stated in the staff report. Is there a second?
Second.
Right, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I'll just note that the special exceptions that staff presented are for our information. We are allowed to comment on them, but we don't actually have a vote on those. So I recommend that those just go on to the Board of Supervisors. I haven't heard any concerns beyond the questions we already asked. So there being no further discussion, we can call the roll.
Okay. Ms. King,
Aye.
Ms. Firehut,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Ms. Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to the applicants. And your next stop is the Board of Supervisors, who will have the final say in whether this goes forward. I'll give you a moment to go home or clear the chamber. All right, we'll now get ready to have the next public hearing of the evening, which is SP 2025-0008 and SE 2026-00017, the Barnes Special Events and Exceptions. Give the staff a moment to get ready.
Thank you all for your patience.
No problem. We'll all just take a yoga meditative moment now. Why not?
Make mindful minute part of our standard agenda. Is that a thing we can?
When I go to the doctor and she says your blood pressure's high, it's because I just drove through Charlottesville traffic. And she says,
yeah.
close your eyes and think of the beach. And it goes right down. So if anyone needs to go to the beach for a minute, go ahead.
I will say that the combination of road work and students back
Yes,
definitely make like
that's
east
right.
west crossing town not
We all
pleasant.
need yoga. All right.
All right.
Are you ready?
Thank you all.
Thanks. We'll have the staff report now.
Of course. My name is Jared Tate. I'm a senior planner with the Planning Division of Albemarle Community Development. And tonight I will be giving staff's presentation for SP 2025-08, the Barnes Special Events. The two subject parcels are located on the southern side of Garth Road, approximately a quarter-mile west of the intersection of Garth Road and Free Union Road. We are in the western part of the county. The surrounding area is of rural character, with a variety of rural areas uses, including low-density single-family residential, forests and open space, and agricultural uses. This is a view of the site traveling west on Garth Road. Those who are familiar might know it as the parcel that has had in the past the Longhorn cattle. The two subject parcels total just under 10.5 acres. Existing zoning of this parcel and all surrounding parcels is rural areas. The property is gently rolling, kind of falls away from Garth Road as it moves south, and there is a small portion of WPO buffers across the southeastern, that very small back corner. No impact to that buffer is expected. Also of note, there is a conservation easement held by the Virginia Outdoors Foundation on the parcel immediately adjacent to the west. This is the applicant's concept plan. The primary use of this property will be agriculture, which is permitted by right under section 10.2.1 of the zoning ordinance. The request that we are reviewing is for special events as regulated by the supplementary regulations in section 5.143. These would be events determined not to be usual and customary at agricultural operations. I would like to highlight a couple things here that are associated with the request. First, number 4, I know this is very small on your plan. That is a number 4. That is the approximate location that the applicant intends to set up portable toilets associated with special events. Also of note are this area and this area, each with a number 2. Those would be the overflow parking areas for special events. And then also number 9, which is all of the areas kind of immediately adjacent to Garth Road and then to the property to the west. And that is proposed landscape screening for the use. This chart details various types of events at agricultural operations as regulated by the supplementary regulations of section 5.158. This is included as the majority of the applicant's proposed event schedule will be regulated by the standards of this section. However, as the applicant has noted that they cannot entirely rule out the possibility of having a limited number of non-agritourism related events each year, SP approval is required for special events under section 5.143. In particular, we'd like to call attention to the fact that they've mentioned renting out the space, prioritizing events that are in line with their mission while still renting the space to another user is a use that would be classified as event rental and not agritourism. So thus, we need to have approval of the SP in order to move forward. The SP request under section 5.143 is highlighted there at the bottom of the chart. So this graphic attempts to illustrate the overall review process and steps for the project. Special use permit review is on the left of the red dashed line. That is what we are considering this evening. Of course, the request, as mentioned, is up to 24 events per year, no more than 150 attendees at any single event. And this is, to reiterate, events determined not usual and customary with agricultural operations. Regardless of the outcome of the SP review, the review steps on the right of the red dashed line will be required for the establishment of the primary use and for events at agricultural operations to commence under section 5158. The factors for consideration for special use permits are as shown. Per the analysis included in the staff report, staff finds that the proposed special events request will cause no substantial detriment to adjacent parcels, will not change the character of the area, will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the chapter, and is consistent with the 2015 comprehensive plan. The applicant has requested 3 special exceptions associated with the special use permit. Overall, staff finds that no detriment will come from the approval of the special exception request with the conditions included in the staff report. The Planning Commission is not required to make a recommendation on the special exception request. However, if the commission chooses to provide comments on the special exceptions, staff will include those in the transmittal summary to the Board of Supervisors. In summary, staff finds the following 3 positive aspects of the special use permit request: that the use is consistent with the review criteria for special use permits contained in the zoning ordinance, that the primary use of the property will be agriculture, and that no detrimental impacts to adjoining properties are anticipated. Staff has not identified any concerns associated with the special use permit or the special exception request. Staff recommends these 4 conditions of approval for the special events special use permit: general accord with the conceptual plan, event and occupancy limit, landscaping must be installed, and outdoor amplified music will be limited per the noise standards of the ordinance. At this point, I am happy to revisit any slides and take any questions that the commissioners may have.
I don't have any questions for staff.
Okay. All right, we'll go this way then. Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about how traffic would be controlled coming into the site and out of the site for those large events of 150 folks?
So the entrance itself will be reviewed and permitted by VDOT, and that happens regardless of approval of the SP. That is one of those supplementary reviews that occurs for the by right use and for any agritourism events that would occur under 5158. And the entrance would have to be in accord with VDOT standards. And they have requested as part of that review that the applicant consider doing a turn analysis to see if a turn lane needs to be added. The warrant analysis was deemed to be needed. The applicant would have to do that in order to get VDOT's permission for the entrance.
Thank you.
So given this is on a national bike route, on my way here, I passed 5 bikes. Just coming here on Garth Road, we're talking about 150 more cars potentially going down that road. What sort of leverage is there? I mean, what kind of discussions had about making sure that there's a place to safely pass bikes in that section of the road? I know that it's a long ongoing concern on Garth Road, that we haven't accommodated bikes on a national bike route. Has there been any discussions about offering a couple extra feet of pavement so that when cars are going down the road, they have a little space to pass a bike or two? Because bikes are there now, a lot of bikes every day.
This is a very good question. As part of staff's review, we of course coordinated with transportation planning. This did not come up. It's an excellent question. I would suggest you maybe direct it to the applicant as a consideration. So far, it has not been considered as part of the proposal.
Thanks.
Nathan?
I'm concerned about the bicyclists and also the intensity of traffic on that curve. And if a turn lane is required by VDOT's study, does that factor into changing the character of the area?
It would not. Those similar turn lanes have been required at other rural areas uses and have been added. And if it's not required, then of course no change occurs.
I have a few questions just to dig back into what you brought up earlier. So I have 2 questions. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on the finding that they are proposing events not usual and customary to agriculture. Are you saying that they're offering classes that are not strictly, what would be usual and customary versus not, just for
Sure.
the benefit of the audience especially?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to elaborate on that. Thank you for that question. So usual and customary would be events such as a workshop on, I believe, one of the proposed uses under the agricultural primary use is apiculture, so bees and honey harvesting. So if they were to offer a class on, a series of lectures maybe on how to harvest honey, that would be considered usual and customary with the agricultural use. An example of not usual and customary would be, say, renting the space to county staff to host a leadership retreat. So that's not related to the agricultural use of the property and therefore would not be deemed usual and customary.
Okay,
Does
so
that clarify?
that's helpful. So my second part of the question then, I didn't memorize the chart, it kind of flashed by. Could you just say a little bit more, if they were to simply only have events that were agriculturally related, harvesting honey, canning tomatoes, whatever, would that put them in a different category and they would not need to be here tonight?
That is
requesting?
correct. So as we look at this chart, you'll notice, of course, most of the things, including some of the gray arrows there on the side, highlighting examples maybe from the applicant's proposed, weekly schedule here, fall under section 5158, either by right or by right with a zoning clearance review. That's a different section of the ordinance. That is events at agricultural operations. It covers agritourism, it covers farm tours, and all of those events regulated by that section are not being considered as part of this proposal and would be reviewed on their own merits under that section.
Right, but
regardless.
not, it wouldn't come to the planning commission for hearing.
It would not. I will say there are certain criterion that do require a special use permit under 5158, but these listed here would not come to the planning commission, no.
Okay, thanks for the refresher.
Of course.
And then one more question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your finding of no substantial detriment? Like how you came to that,
So
what you look at?
what we're looking at there in particular with this specific use is potential immediate impacts from the special events to surrounding properties. Things like light from headlights of cars as they enter and exit the property after dark. Things like noise of outdoor amplified music. Those would be two examples. And because of the conditions that we've authored to limit those things, we believe that with those conditions, there would be no substantial detriment to adjoining properties.
Right, and I also understand it's a bit of an art form as well, because then you have to get into what does substantial mean and so on and so forth. So don't worry, I'm not going to belabor the point. I think my fellow commissioner has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I actually do have a clarifying question about the type of special events and the amount that would be restricted by the current application. So for special events not deemed usual for agricultural purposes, they're proposing 150 or fewer. Can you just clarify for me, is that in addition to what they would be by right allowed for agricultural, or would they be lumped together then in that 150?
So
Or I'm both things.
the
people-
24, of course. Yeah,
Correct.
you're talking about the limits.
Thank you.
So the 24 would be the limit of the number of events. And per staff's analysis, that would be a limit on the events that they could have under section 5143 and would be in addition to events that could be had under 5158.
That's my question. So 24 non-customary plus they could potentially have additional agricultural events that
Is
were
correct.
customary.
Yes.
That was helpful. Okay, I think we have no more questions for staff at this time, so we're ready to hear a presentation from the applicant. You can state your name, your general location of residence, and you will also get the lights coming on, but you have more time than 3 minutes.
Sure.
Hmm?
Yeah. One sec, we'll just queue up the PowerPoint. Thanks.
Your timer is not started yet,
Okay.
don't worry.
Mhm.
Oops. Yeah.
And then one of these is yours.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Gilman. I reside with my partner, Jess Forsyth, who's here with me. She's also the applicant here today. My parents, Nancy and Charlie, are in the audience. And my family is at 2149 Garth Road, which is the parcel right next to the one in question tonight. So we're here tonight with a wonderful team of ecologists, landscape architects, and engineers who have worked to bring this dream to life over the last 2 years. The folks at Nelson Bird Woltz and Woolley Engineering, in addition to my family, and we're here for any questions that you have, as well as the community members in the audience. By way of background, I went to UVA Law. My dad also went there and is a professor there now. He actually had his first class today, so congrats, Dad. First class of the semester, rather. I've spent the last 15 years in sustainable agriculture, in environmental advocacy, and in flower farming. My partner, Jess, went to New York University, and she practices herbal medicine and is a master breathwork and meditation teacher. Our application has been an ongoing dialogue over months with the county staff who have provided constructive comments that we have taken into deep consideration in multiple revisions and improvements. I want to thank the staff and let the board know just how thorough they've been so that we feel we have a sound application in front of you today. We appreciate their efforts and we appreciate yours. We want to thank our neighbors and community members. I wish I could face you while I also face the board for coming to listen and to give feedback. This is your free time, and regardless of whether you're excited about this or you have concerns, we're happy to be in dialogue with you and have you here tonight. We're pleased to say our adjacent neighbors on the south side of Garth Road have reviewed our plans and are in support of this project, many of whom wrote in. Any questions others have, we probably have also had as we live right next door. We have discussed them in the countless back and forth as a family at the kitchen table, with county staff, with VDOT, with fire marshal, and with everyone we've consulted to form this application. What we're proposing is the product of real consideration, and we hope that's reflected tonight. The Barns is a sustainable farm with the mission of tending to both the soul and soil. We will transform our family's current cattle pasture into a productive, ecologically diverse, regenerative farm. We will enrich the soil and cultivate habitat with native plantings, a native orchard, pollinator meadows, a cut flower garden, a medicinal garden, and a culinary garden, all of which will inform what we sell and the related educational workshop programming and community experiences we plan to offer on site. In order to enable folks to experience what we're growing, we will build 2 small barns, each around 1,200 square feet, connected by a breezeway, where we can both process crops and hold land-based curriculum. They're much smaller than the surrounding residential and agricultural buildings on Garth Road. They will be made of high-quality natural materials with dark sky appropriate lighting set to timers to automatically turn off when programming closes. One barn is open and will contain quieter reflection, housing herbalism, meditation, community conversation. The other structure contains hands-on work housing botanicals, honey, cooking from the garden. We will have a portion of our programming free to the community, as well as a portion targeted specifically to children and to seniors, 2 populations we believe especially benefit from land-based healing. Here's an aerial shot of the property. You can see Timber Creek Farm. You can see the Gordons, formerly the Wells. You can see the Blakemores and my parents' property. And then the 2 stars are the property we're speaking about tonight. When we decided to build this farm, we created an in-depth tree study of the property so we could assess the tree health of every one of the hundreds of trees on the farm. We're so proud to have designed everything around those old trees. Not a single healthy tree will be removed for either the drive or the barns that we're locating on site. We believe that the future of sustainable agriculture is a dynamic one where small growers are not isolated individual monoculture farms. We want to be able to be a part of the community, to lift up other growers, makers, writers, artists, creators with an extension of our already vested right. We believe that special use programming twice a month will allow us to cross-pollinate, bringing people onto the farm by way of events and public outreach. We believe it will allow us to foster partnerships within the community and that it will make the community a more interesting, engaged, vital place. We believe we will give the community a beautiful space to gather for unique, intimate, quiet, land-based learning and experiences that isn't the university or a church or a vineyard. These might range from a monthly cooking class with a local chef, or a yoga class with a local yoga instructor, or an acoustic classical quartet with local musicians. It might look like a book signing by a local author. The intimate explorations we will offer the community in the barns and on the farm will allow people to get curious about what nature offers and to remember our place within the living world, not in isolation, but together. These will never be rowdy, loud parties. These will never be late nights with amplified music. These will never be weddings. These experiences are by nature quiet, soulful, and thoughtful. Any loud noise would be incongruent with our mission, with the plants and animals that live on the land, as well as our family right next door. It's worth reminding that by right, we are able to gather and hold agricultural workshops, as you know, and related gatherings in larger numbers than what we're applying for under this special use permit. What we're asking for is the ability to collaborate and be a part of the community in a wider way, while keeping our mission and keeping to quiet use. On these slides are just some examples of some of the habitat work and infrastructure we're planning on. So you can see meadows, cutting gardens, poultry farming. We already have hives, but an expansion of the apiary, local habitat, bird and bat boxes, lowland native planning, and climate resiliency measures like stormwater management and catchment systems. I want to talk about road safety and traffic, as I know this is a chief concern by the community and also for us as we live on the same road. So we know this road and we know the community well. We agree with comments shared by neighbors over the way people drive on it. We share your concern over cycling as cyclists ourselves. It's a real concern, and I'm sure it's one the county receives a great deal of feedback on. To any extent we can be helpful allies in bringing safety solutions to Garth Road with the board, we are happy to. We have reached out to neighbors in this process, and if any additional mailings weren't received, for everyone here, please know that we are open books and we're happy to be in conversation. I gave my cell phone at the community meeting. I'm happy to do that again tonight to anyone who wants to continue this conversation. With regards to the role that road safety plays in this application, to the extent that we can control it, we have worked with VDOT, spending a great deal of time and energy to locate the safest possible turn-in location, measuring the site distance along the curve in each direction. We will remove select existing vegetation, relocate select existing fences for improved site distance to that end. Citing the entry location for optimal safety and limiting the impact of headlights has been our top priority in partnership with VDOT. The entry drive is located 50 feet west of the current entry location in the area identified by VDOT as safest. It does not align with the driveway across Garth Road. It will be 60 feet east of that driveway. In consultation with our landscape designers, we have laid the driveway so that headlights of any vehicles will not shine across Garth Road. Some of this nuance is lost in a 2D rendering, so let me describe this. When leaving the barns, all vehicles proceed down a hill, headlights pointed down into the ground ahead. As the driveway approaches Garth Road and levels, the driveway turns east so that headlights are on our property parallel to and not across from Garth Road. To skip ahead to parking, we have cited parking 570 feet south of Garth Road, 19 spaces plus 3 ADA spaces, 12 to 14 feet below the level of Garth Road, visibly lower than the road, screened from Garth Road and adjacent properties by dense native plantings. To speak to traffic, VDOT reports indicate 5,500 average daily car traffic on Garth Road, we imagine adding 60 trips. So let me repeat, 5,500 average daily car traffic on Garth Road. We imagine whether it's in 1 or 2 classes a day during the 2 or 3 days during the weekdays that we're open, or it's a single special use event, 60 trips. We imagine most of this regular programming and special use will be similar to things on the road: Hunt Country Market, Foxfield Small Programming, church services. We really want to be a partner to the community and a partner to you all as we talk through this. So I think that gets everything I was hoping to express, but we're here for Q&A. We're here to talk, and we're really proud of this project. Let me just scroll through so you can see the last slides. This shows
Just about out of time.
just about out of time. Okay. Native
So-
plant screening, barns, and then stormwater management, climate resiliency measures. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can stay here because this is the period where we ask questions of the applicant. So start with you. Yeah, if you have anything.
Thank you. It's a very thoughtful plan, and I think it's very exciting to think about the regenerative agriculture use on this land. I wonder, I'm having a hard time understanding like the total of 60 trips if we're looking at such a big potential for use by looking at the maximum of 150 people 24 times a year. And so I wonder if you considered starting without a special use permit that required that, or if you considered, putting some rails or restrictions on the numbers of people and the numbers of occurrences to reduce it from 24 or to reduce it from 150, because that is, it's a big change. And, the scale of the property, it's a great plan, but it is a small scale, I think, for a number of people if you look at it from the maximum.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that question very much. Something that we're really excited about is learning what Charlottesville really wants out of this farm. So part of the inspiration for coming to you all for special use is to be able to be open to those kinds of collaborations. So to not be traditionally just growing botanicals and herbs and produce, which we will, but to say, if there's someone who we have a relationship with who would benefit from coming to a really special, beautiful site to show their work in collaboration with us or to teach us something that we don't know, that's really what we're after. We don't come as a group trying to hold, I think, what folks might be afraid of, which would be something like a wedding, something like big noisy impact. We're really looking for special use because some of the ways that we're hopeful at being real great stewards within the community is working with people who are outside of agriculture. And that's what we've done, in the decades of our work in agriculture, that it's very powerful to be able to have a speaker come, or it's very powerful to be able to have folks come and heal that isn't a part of our normal programming. So that's the inspiration for it. I can assure you, living right next door, we're the closest house, we're the closest people. We would never want to create something we can't live with. And, when I understand hearing that number, it sounds alarming and it sounds large, but really what we're after is the ability to have flexibility in collaboration. That's really what's driving it. And we think that these special uses are going to help bring people to the farm. We think it's really the future of sustainable ag is to be able to be more dynamic than a traditional kind of farm operation that's not as accessible to the community. So we're trying to strike the balance of, a few days of the week we'd be closed to the public. We would just be doing farming. And then a few days of the week we'd be in regular programming, which would look like, a morning class and an evening class, small class size. We anticipate probably 20 people. And then if we have a special twice a month where we have a monthly yoga or a monthly collaboration or a monthly rental that's in keeping with quiet use, that's, something like a healing retreat. that all of that would really kind of operate the same way with the same amount of impact and traffic that we see with our own neighborhood with other, infrastructure that's on Growth Road. But we're flexible to, the advice of obviously this body and what you
And
think.
I appreciate those intentions and I
Yeah.
do believe you, but I do think, and staff, correct me if I'm wrong, that the special use permit remains in perpetuity with the property.
That's correct.
And so if the property was acquired by someone who might have different intentions, they still have, access to the rights given by the special use permit, which might not be as responsible and respectful as you all plan.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
I was just, as you described it and from the narrative first of all, this is a beautiful presentation.
Thanks.
And really illustrative of what you plan to do and how you plan to do it. What I heard sounds almost like you all are developing almost like a rural version of a kind of a gathering space. Maybe not quite like a country store that's open all the time, but still something where you might have regulars and people that are there quite a bit. My question is maybe a little bit of a 180 from my colleague, but I wonder why you don't go bigger. Why limit your events to 150 when it sounds like a wonderful place that a lot of people might enjoy?
I appreciate that. I think that's a question that's been asked before, if you could, why wouldn't you, with a beautiful view and a beautiful space. But the fact is we live there and we have the same reservations that anyone would have who is near a functional event space. It's also not the nature of the work. So I think I mentioned it, but when we're dealing with live animals, with, living plants and trees, with really carefully cultivated investment that's going to take us a few years to really get in the ground and get stable. If we've got tons of folks walking over it, it's just never going to actually be what we're setting out to be, which is a regenerative farm. So what we're hoping for with this flexibility and extension of agritourism is really not to have a 180 from our daily operations. It's to be able to attract people to this farm, which is little. But the amazing thing about little farms, I've been small farming for 20 years. And just with botanicals, the amount you can have on 1 acre with regenerative practices where you're rotating and cultivating great soil is incredible. So I think it might seem unusual for a small acreage to want to do so much, but it comes from, a lifetime of experience where small spaces can really grow. And we want to do that without consistent large events. Really, the special use is much more by type for us. It's much more because we don't want to be, we want to walk into this openly with you and with the community and say, hey, like we would love to have you come and introduce you to permaculture through this yoga class that we're going to hold. And we would love to introduce you through this acoustic indoor quiet quartet that we're going to have on 5 p.m., And so I think for us, the dynamism is the thing that allows a small farm to survive. And it's something we care deeply about. And we also care deeply about our neighbors. And so to the extent we can partner, that we can, put in more than the required screening, we are. To the extent we spend more time and energy, we have and we will. This is something that's really a life work for us. And we plan to be here for hopefully 100 years, to see it grow. And we hope to have everyone here, and we understand all of the reasonable concerns and we really come here as your neighbor.
Thank you for that. And what I'm hearing is it's a farm first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not really about the farm or even the events per se, except I'm just curious about the accessibility to the community with some classes, and you've mentioned a couple other possibilities. I've heard a number of facilities in sort of that part of the county that talk about being open to the public and being accessible, and they say that and it doesn't always feel that way.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering what you had in mind in terms of making it available to people.
Definitely. I think from what I know from farming, there are a few days a week where the farm has to be closed to the public just to be able to actually do the work of running a farm, which is intense and all day. So we imagine that looks like, Monday, Tuesday, we're closed and there'll be a gate that's closed and a sign out there and everything so that folks know to expect that. And then targeted open hours where we've got, routine, similar ag-based, land-based classes every week. So we're going to have a botanical, foraging and floral design class every week, or we're going to have that apiary related honey class every week. And I think we'll have regulars who love those things and want to keep learning with us. And then with accessibility, to your larger point beyond hours, we're really looking at this as filling a void. We really don't think there are places that are doing what we're going to be doing. I know there's comparisons to, Oakencroft or other places that are in the neighborhood, but these are first and foremost vineyards, they're corporations. Like this will be a small regenerative ag farm. And the accessibility we're hoping to have, especially towards children and seniors, is an intergenerational space where we can partner, with local orgs that serve those populations, have them learn together, have this be a real place of mixed, diverse learning, which you're not going to get in a school and you're not always going to get in continued ed. And we find that when folks get on land and learn with their hands, that similar to the first applicant, I couldn't agree more. Like people really bump into themselves and drop into something that's slower and really community driven. So I think your comparison to kind of I don't know if you said community center or a place where people go, that is what we want. We want that with set hours that respect, neighbors and respect our own ability to run a farm. But the hope is that this will be a really treasured place. It's why we want to go through this process versus, start it and surprise people with wanting to have a diverse, eclectic, amount of other collaborations on the land. So we know it's a wide kind of dynamic proposal, but we really think this is going to serve as a place where folks love to be, and not love to be loud or not love to be late, but just love to be.
Thanks.
Yes. So first of all, just looking at the definition of special event and some of the uses that are allowed there that would be allowed by this permit for yourselves and for future landowners, would include new meetings, conferences, banquets, dinners, weddings, and private parties. And so I'm sure you'll hear from speakers tonight of your neighbors about what kind of uses that they find most problematic. Would you be willing to scratch out some of those uses that would be potentially allowed? Like you said, you don't plan to have weddings. Would you be willing to scratch out some of those, like eliminate weddings as a use?
Sorry to interrupt you, Lonnie. We would be more than happy to scratch that out. This is not the case where you've got an event space masquerading as a farm. This is a farm that's hoping to be dynamic. And so to soothe any concerns about weddings, we will never have them. We're happy to condition the permit with that. We wouldn't want them next door. It's a lucrative business. It's not the business that we want to be in for a million different reasons.
Great, thank you. And they, and then also, you mentioned being a cyclist, and is if you've been passed by a vehicle, while riding a bike, particularly on someplace like Garth Road, how sketchy it is right now and how few safe places there are for people to pass bikes on that road, which leads to drivers, particularly around curves like where you are, for people to make dangerous decisions. So I don't know if you considered any ways to provide a safe place for bikes to be passed in that area, or other ways to make your little segment a little safer for cyclists on this national bike route.
I agree. This is something that Jess and I talk about a lot. We love to, we bike in Virginia, we bike in New York. Garth Road is so scenic and it's on the route and it's such a beautiful place to bike if there was safety and if there was an actual bike lane that protected bikers. So could not be more sympathetic to that. Whatever we can do that's within our, reasonable power to do, we will. The last thing that we want is for folks to have a beautiful experience with us and then to pull out and have a hazardous experience leaving. So we're going to work closely with VDOT, we're open to VDOT's recommendations with regards to safety and with regards to screening and neighborliness. We will perform the maximum amount, and we're happy to condition that as well. The two-dimensional survey doesn't portray it as easily as if I wish we were all on the pasture right now because we could walk it. But there's a steep grade change as you go from the saddle in the middle of the property down to the entrance. And there's another one going off each side of the saddle, as you move south on the property. And so with citing the 19+3 ADA spaces deep into the property, over 550 feet, citing the barns over 750 feet south into the property, over 10 feet below eye level at the road, we really don't anticipate folks even seeing these beautiful barns that we're going to build, which we'll be so proud of, but certainly seeing any of the cars. That goes for, the front and the back parking. And the way that we designed this was both in reference to the trees, which were and are so important to us. And we steward, over 100+ year old trees on this land, on the combined 20 acres between my family's house and the pasture next door. And so we drew this driveway, both thinking about headlights and thinking about trees. And we put the parking in this really central kind of prime spot on the land exactly so that we could screen it from everybody. And so that according to the fire marshal, they could access trucks close to the barns like they need to. So we really drew this one step at a time, talking to each person that we would need to on the county and VDOT and fire front, and then thought in a way that hopefully folks can see reflected, how can we be as safe as possible while also being as thoughtful as possible with site? So removing things that are in that site easement and sight line, and then planting additional screening everywhere that is not impacted by safety or sight. So yes, we would be happy to be in conversation with VDOT and any measures they think would improve, bicycle safety and also just automotive safety, both.
Yeah, so one simple thing, and to get slightly technical here. So when you're driving down the road and you
Yep.
see there's the white line on the sides of the road, you'll see sometimes you're along Garth Road and there's more pavement to the
More shoulder. Yeah.
more paved shoulder on the side of that white line. It can be 3 feet, sometimes it can be 4 feet. But where it goes along your property, there's zero. There's
Yeah.
like white line and then just drop off. So, absent, an actual bike lane or an actual more formalized thing, just adding more paved, shoulder there might
Yeah.
be a really great thing that you could do, particularly if you could get to, 4 feet or something like that. But
We appreciate that, definitely. I think, Eric, if there's any technical side to speak to that, or,
You would have to come to the microphone and state your.
Thanks.
Excellent points. Eric Woolley, Woolley Engineering. Boy, I just don't think we have enough land. So if you're going to provide a refuge, you've got to give someone accessibility to and from. So we're limited by the frontage that they have. So in with what we have, we're not positive if VDOT is going to require a right turn and taper lane. So we have done a turn warn analysis. It was talked about earlier by Jared. We know that according to VDOT's regulations, we do not think that a left turn and taper would be required. The right turn and taper, while we don't feel it's required, is always VDOT's prerogative. So they can look at anything and say, well, it's Garth Road and we think a right turn and taper is necessary. So I just want to point out that if we are required to put a right turn and taper lane in which we don't know that answer yet, because VDOT has told us, you've done great work up to this point, we're going to put you on hold until you have the next step. We don't want to talk about those types of details until we know that this is a project that can go forward, right? And so our next step would be to talk to VDOT. We would need to find out exactly what they're going to require of us. So if we are to take a right turn and taper lane, we're going to be forming somewhat of a refuge already. If we
if that amount of land is taken, we really don't have very much. I mean, 50 feet on the right-hand side on the east and maybe 100 feet on the west. That's not a significant amount. I think that we could certainly entertain those ideas and yeah, you see the heads nodding. They're definitely going to be agreeable to anything that we can provide that VDOT would allow. And so I just want to preface that VDOT has not given us that final answer, but it's possible.
That's fair. And then one final question. Could you give us some examples of non-agricultural activities or events that you would like to have that would require, the special use permit?
Sure. An event we would love to have would be to do a movie screening, with a local director and someone speaking about the movie they made and folks sitting inside and watching it. And that could tie to ag, but we would love to have something that didn't necessarily tie to ag where we're supporting the arts in Charlottesville. We'd love to have, we have some friends who are classical musicians in Charlottesville. We would love to have them come play, not outside, but inside, and not amplified, but acoustic. And we really want to have the flexibility where we're not feeling like we're operating beyond your guys' expectations of a traditional classical agritourism farm. And so those are really the types that first come to mind. A monthly yoga series also comes to mind. We think that would bring folks onto the land to discover it in a way that would be really hard for us to engineer. We're not going to be doing advertising. And so I think what happens sometimes with local farming is people don't know if they can come to a farm or if they can come and experience it. And certainly people who already know about us are going to see our schedule and see that they can be there. But we think we're going to be able to really inspire folks who wouldn't otherwise maybe find us. And so having a set monthly yoga series or having a set acoustic musical experience inside that's not late night and that's not loud, that feels like things that we know how to do. We love to collaborate in that way, and we think it'll raise the profile of the regenerative work that we're doing, and really allow something quite interesting to happen on the land, which is in keeping with that quiet use and meditative use that we really want to inspire through nature. But we think nature touches everything. So to segregate a farm as if it all occurs within the four corners of the property, and that food isn't also about gathering, it isn't also about cooking, or it isn't also about togetherness. We'd love to invite a rising local chef to come and cook a small dinner using things that we grew. So these are the type of things, some of which fall in agritourism and then some of which seem a little gray. And we would much rather go through you all and be explicit with you and with our neighbors. Like, we're looking to do something really special, and grow from there.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you. I want to echo what Commissioner Moore said, that I think the concept and the presentation is beautiful. Some thoughts that came to my mind while you were speaking about the concept is that, for me, it sounds very much like a perfect use of the historical agricultural nature of Albemarle County, specifically an educational purpose, which I think falls in line with Mr. Jefferson and the university and Monticello and events that they have there at their visitor center. It's very similar. I also hear you, and I want to make sure that this is what I'm hearing, is that, you're looking to teach something that is something that you believe is a healthy something, right? So to bring back to the community a way of living and being that is with the land, with the animals, with food, farm to table. And quite frankly, we need a place to teach that. You can't teach that in the city. You can't teach that in a suburb. And I agree with you, it's important. Do you ever see yourselves having any type of retail, like a farm market? That was one of my questions.
First, thank you so much for what you said. I think the biggest inspiration beyond land restoration and taking this from cattle pasture, which we love our cattle, they're part of our family. We're lucky enough to be able to retire them right next door at Timber Creek. But the compact usage on that soil, it's been decades of just cows. And so what we've got there is, you know, really dense, kind of packed mud, dirt, soil, and we're going to spend a lot of time cover cropping and renewing that soil. But beyond even any of that, which I feel like I could nerd out on forever, is we really want this to be a place of education. And that's part of where the conversation started, where we were speaking to the wonderful folks at County, to Jared, and saying, you know, this is a place of learning. And so they would say, you know, is it a school? Is it a farm? What is it? And we're first and foremost a farm, but the thing that we're trying to offer is learning at any age. We're learning through the farm, through the food, through the herbs, through the medicinal herbs. But really what folks are engaged in is slowing down and how to connect and live. And we don't see that happening at a lot of places that you might hear this compared to. So this is not, it's not a vineyard. It's not a specific house of worship. It's not a restaurant. It's not any of those things. But it is a place that we think could offer a sacred place of gathering that ties to land and that brings people together. And in our neighborhood, there really isn't a lot of it. And I think that connecting to the land and then connecting to each other through being on this land, that education is exactly what we're after. So thank you for highlighting it. And we're really excited to partner, like whether it's with 4-H or with a school or with assisted living, to have routine opportunities for folks who don't always have access to land like this on a road like this. We feel really lucky that our family's on this road, but we don't think it needs to all be for families with their own use. And we think that being a farm can also mean something more. We imagine we'll have end products for sale. To answer your question, Mary. So we currently have beehives. We imagine, for example, that we might have classes, like experiences around those hives. We work with a wonderful woman, Allison at Siller Pollinator, who wrote in but was unable to be here tonight. And we could imagine teaching around those hives, but we'll also jar honey, and we'll sell that honey. And so there will be, you know, in a way most farms have end products that they would sell. So selling vegetables or selling herbs, selling flowers, but there will also be a side-by-side experience with, we imagine, every single one of those products. So if we're growing tomatoes, which we will, we want to sell those tomatoes, but we also want to be able to learn how to cook or learn how to grow or learn what the heirloom that has been grown in Charlottesville for 200 years. We want to grow that tomato. And so pulling apart every offering into as deep a depth as we can and not trying to grow, bless you, not growing 10 acres of one thing, but growing 100 different things on 10 acres throughout the year with permaculture practices that allow us to use the land in ways that I think industrial farming just can't. So yes, and products for sale as well.
And there's a kitchen in the building, I'm assuming, since you've talked quite a bit about.
Yes. So one of the barns is open, and we imagine that's a place for, you know, versatile use, conversation, quiet meditation, you know, medicinal herb work. And Jess here is both an herbalist and just an incredible savant in this work. I feel so lucky she's my partner, but also for Charlottesville, so lucky to have someone who's so knowledgeable in this work. So some of the things that we're growing, thinking about the properties and how they can be healing. And then the other barn, which is connected by a breezeway, which is not enclosed, it's just a shared roof line, about the same size, both about 1,200 square feet. So neither building very large. The second barn has an open kitchen. And the reason we did that was so that this felt like a home. And the way that I've taught botanical classes for the last 15 years, the most fun folks have and the most relaxing experience they have is being at home while learning something. And so when we were framing this out, we were thinking, you know, we want to have food be a part of this program. We want to have flowers be part of this program. Does it all need to live separately? No. And so in designing one of the barns with an open kitchen about the same size as a residential kitchen, we imagine we'll be able to teach, I will be able to teach floral design work from that kitchen. A local chef will also be able to stand at that kitchen and teach, and then we can host a dinner in that same space. So trying to make the one barn that's a lot messier and more hands-on as versatile as we can within a small footprint. So one is empty, one is, open, and one has the kitchen functionality, which we think will work really well, especially with dinners and things like that being a real goal of ours.
And if you had events that had an outdoor tent, an open tent, would that be a permanent structure or temporary?
No, so no permanent tent structure. We really think most of the things we'd love to do occur easily within the footprint of these two barns. And because we designed it with a courtyard in between, we imagine, you can open up all these doors and be able to walk around, and it's a space that's really indoor, outdoor, and all south facing, all in the back, all heavily screened. The tent we located based on the recommendations from, was it its proximity to the building, the amount of screening we can put around it, the fire marshal kind of dictated where that could be. And that would be only temporarily when we have occasional use that demands folks be able to spill out in that way. But we really foresee much not requiring anything like that. We're not interested in porta potties. We're building a really beautiful space. Spending a lot of time and energy and money trying to build something that's really going to last. And so having a bunch of, porta potties in a tent is not going to enhance the experience. I think it's really just upon necessity, and really not a frequent occurrence that anyone would expect. But regardless, far enough back that no one is going to see it from the road, with the level of screening and grade change.
Okay. Anything else? All right, well, thank you. You'll have a chance to come back up after we hear from the public.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're going to move on to the public hearing. I have 13 people who've pre-signed up to speak. If you did not sign up, you will be able to have your chance to speak after we get through the first 13. I'm going to call your names 3 at a time so that we don't delay while we wait for each person to singularly walk up. So I'm going to call you 3 at a time in that order. So the first person we have signed up is Dory Boudreau, second Emily Huddleston, and third Gilbert Lemieux. I might have butchered your last name, Gilbert. So again, you remember the rules from moments ago. You have 3 minutes. Watch the lights, and when it gets to red, you're done.
Hi, I'm Dory Boudreau, and I live at 2710 Hunt Country Lane, just a stone's throw away from the barns. I oppose granting the special use permit that has been put forth by the barns. The subject parcels are zoned rural areas, and the permit seeks to allow construction of an event space to host daily and weekend workshops and special events up to 24 times a year. Oakencroft Farm, just 3 miles south of the barns, demonstrates that farming, education, and events can successfully coexist. But scale matters. Oakencroft's event programming is on par with the barns, but it is offered on a property of roughly 250 acres. The barns is projecting this level of visitor activity on a property less than 11 acres. Albemarle County's own regulations recognize that acreage matters when adding event activity to farmland. Additional zoning review is required for properties under 21 acres. The barns is less than half of that. But let's just look at a few numbers, and all of these numbers come from a May 22nd memo prepared by Woolley Engineering. First set of numbers, workshops Wednesday through Friday with upwards of 144 attendees daily. That's 4 classes a day with as many as 36 attendants. Weekend workshops, 1 to 2 times per month with up to 75 guests per event. Special events, which we have talked about, 2 times a month with up to 150 guests. Workshop and special event hours will range from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. On-site parking, paved and unpaved, will be able to house 64 cars. My question here is, whether it's an event or whether it's a workshop, it's a lot of cars, it's a lot of people. Other concerns: increased car and school bus traffic, a potential need for VDOT to build a turning lane, introduction of signage, lighting, and sound pollution, alcohol usage on property. Will alcohol be served at special events? Will it be at weekend workshops? Will it be at evening, weekday workshops? Is this a farm or is this an event site? I think it really makes a difference. And as someone who lives in this area, I hate to see more event spaces coming up. And for a precedent, I just hope you'll all consider that everybody with 10 spare acres will follow whatever is decided among these people that we've entrusted. I worry about that. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. And also for the speakers, you can pull those mics more towards you. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're recording this, so it's important she can hear you too.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Emily. I'm in the city of Charlottesville, but I grew up just off of Garth Road. I recently moved back to Charlottesville, and as I'm sure the commission knows, Charlottesville has changed a lot over the years, in a lot of ways for the better. I care very deeply about what this community becomes and also what we preserve as it grows. I believe regenerative farming is a very worthy use of the rural land and something Albemarle County would benefit from. But I spent the foundation of my career in hospitality, weddings, and events. And when I look at this proposal, I worry that it's not just a regenerative farm with occasional community programming. I see it operating a full-scale events business. We just walked through the numbers, but to total the number of annual events per year that could occur, it's 672 programmed gatherings per year. Also, workshop is a broad category. It covers agricultural education, but also visiting chef experiences, readings, and performances running as late as 10 p.m. In my opinion, the stated attendance and hours don't capture the full operational footprint of additional staff, vendors, and deliveries that increase the number of people on site, and the setup and breakdown that extend the activity beyond the hours of the program itself. All of that is being concentrated on just 10 acres, and yet the proposed conditions appear to limit only the 24 special events, not the cumulative activity across the broader programming calendar. This application has also shifted in just 6 months. The original proposal was a wellness and learning destination centered on yoga, meditation, breathwork, and ceramics. After working through the permitting process, the applicants now make regenerative agriculture the stated primary use, or retaining a significant programming and events component. I'm not questioning the applicant's intent, but when the business model has already changed during the permitting process, the conditions need to ensure that agriculture remains the priority, not just under today's proposal, but as the business evolves if the property changes hands. I'd ask you to consider the broader implications. If the level of programming is appropriate on these 10 acres because it's connected to agriculture, what limits the next application? I don't support the approval of the special use permit as proposed, but if you are going to approve it, then at a minimum, please materially reduce the event allowance and establish clear enforceable limits on the frequency side and scope of all visitor programming, not just the 24 special events. And the conditions should make community programming genuinely occasional and accessory to the agricultural use, rather than allowing hundreds of programmed gatherings throughout the year. Albemarle's rural land is worth protecting, and we should be very careful about opening the door to this level of commercial activity this small. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I use both like this? All right. Hi, I'm Gilbert Lemieux. I live at 2505 Hunt Country, which is just across Garth from this, and I will do this extemporaneously. I love the Longhorns. I'm kind of sad to see them go, but I think the agricultural programming here looks great. What I'm concerned about is the special events specifically. My 4 and 5-year-old boys love to ride their bikes down the hill from our house to the pond. Our road is the next public road that you turn into after this. And so I'm worried about the increase in traffic, people missing the the turn, coming down the road, turning around. It's going to be a lot more traffic in our neighborhood, which I'm concerned about. And I'm concerned a little bit about the nature of some of the events that are allowed by the permit, as well as the permanent nature of the permit. I think if it really is quiet, small events, the application says, for example, that they expect half of the events to be under 50 people. If it is, then I think that's great, but I would like the application to state that and to limit that. And I don't know how that works, so I'm not sure how flexible the application can be. But I would love to see things like, requiring that half of the events be 50 people or fewer, as they stated in the application. Maybe not serving alcohol. I'm, obviously concerned about sort of the noise and driving consequences of that near our house. As well as maybe the idea of, limiting the number of events that can happen in a consecutive space. Obviously, they said 24 per year. You could do that as every weekend for 6 months during wedding season. And, that concerns me, or the ability to do that concerns me. Now, they said they don't intend to have weddings, but unless you limit this in the special use permit itself, then, a subsequent owner could do something different. So really, I just would like to see the use permit, if it is approved, scoped in such a way that it allows, or that it makes sure that, future owners of the land can't make this completely different, right? Can't turn it into an events venue or a wedding venue, which is one thing that I think no one wants. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the next three people we have signed up are Nancy Lauer, John Lauer, and Meredith Wu.
Hello, I'm John Lauer and Jack Jewett District. And I live at 2150 Garth Road, directly across the street from this proposed property. I have a very difficult time because I've lived in this house for 22 years and I am very familiar with the Garth Road problems. I've had a BMW take out a telephone pole right in front of my house. I had a dump truck come off the road and go through our mailboxes, and numerous other accidents. And one of my other neighbors has even more right across the street from where this property is going. So I'm very, very concerned about that. It's a dangerous road. The trucks on this road in the last 2 years have increased dramatically. I don't know what's going on, but there was some easement in Free Union where we have timber trucks, dump trucks full of gravel, full of dirt, speeding 60, 65 miles an hour right around that curve. So you see it every day. I was hoping VDOT would be represented here today. I guess not. But it really needs to be looked at. And the final problem I have is the perpetuity issue, which is very important also, because who knows what happens with people. Properties can change. Everything can change. So thank you.
Thank you. Ready for the next speaker? Okay. Meredith Wu is not here, I assume?
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Meredith Wu. My husband, Neil Cassell, and I live in 2154 Garth Road. We are directly opposite from the barns being proposed, and our entrance will be directly opposite the new entrance that is being designed. And it was only in the last 2 weeks that we found out through word of mouth that the special permit was being asked, and we were not contacted by the applicants. We were not contacted really by anybody else, but we did hear of it through word of mouth and the fact that our entrance is looking directly at the entrance of this farm, the new entrance. And so in the last 2 weeks, I did a lot of research through the archive, the various narratives and various maps that came about. And we feel very strongly that we would not want the county to grant permit for special events, which will be in perpetuity. In the course of this, one silver lining in this affair was that I've got to meet my neighbors that live very close to the proposed site. And I can say that on the basis of my speaking with them, and that's about 8 households very near, that they are to the last person opposed. And they are opposed to the idea of having special events that adds to the burden of the traffic. But they do share one thing in common. They all love Garth Road and our neighborhood for the tranquility and beauty of it, and they would not want to see it change. They also have deep concerns about increasing traffic in the area. And let me just say for ourselves that our area, that area of my entrance and the new entrance, is a very dangerous area. We always have cars come by that usually, because it's a curve, lose control, and we've had our wall smashed 5 times. Only last year, we had a student driver smash into our stone wall. Fortunately, he wasn't hurt. And also, fortunately, his father was a mason, so he rebuilt the wall over a 4-month period. But this is a very dangerous area, amount of traffic that will be added with 150-person events will be quite enormous in an area that is particularly dangerous. And for us, looking at the road that enters into the site, this will mean that at night it will be headlights looking directly at our bedroom. It will be also, perhaps the applicants do not plan to have noise or events that generate noise, but who knows, in perpetuity, that could very well happen in the future. So I would hope that you consider these things into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I had called on Nancy Lauer, but did not hear. Oh, no, okay, we're fine. Nancy says it's fine. All right. Next on deck, we have Ray Morgan, Zachary Miller, and Richard Fox II.
I am Ray Morgan. I live at 2705 Hunt Country Lane. Over the last 44 years that I've lived here, I've driven by this property thousands of times at all times of the day and night and in both directions, so I know the area fairly well. I live only a few hundred yards away from the site. Safety is my major concern for the local community. I think it'd be an unmitigated disaster to grant a special use permit to this small rural property. Ms. Brown, a few minutes earlier, made the point that the special use permit transfers with the property. So somebody in the future could easily have the weddings and have 200 people there, potentially inebriated, dumped onto the road at night. That's a big concern and should be for the board. Few drivers obey the posted speed limits on the curved portion of the road. Just this morning, I was driving and there was a lady who was walking with earpods in and a bicyclist and a truck coming at me. All I had to do was stop because I had nowhere to go. That's how tight it is. I think we're potentially creating an unmitigated disaster, and I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Zachary Miller. I own and operate Timber Creek Farm, which is a working thoroughbred breeding and training operation. We share approximately a mile of border with the property on which the barns is proposed to sit. And we are likely the property that is the most impacted by this project. I want to take a couple of minutes to speak in favor of the project. In the 50 years that my family has been at Timber Creek, we have managed pasture restoration. I've integrated regenerative land management practice onto our farm, and we've worked to balance active farming operations with community and environmental responsibility. I understand what serious agriculture stewardship looks like, And what Kate and Jessica are proposing reflects exactly that. Their vision is really compelling. We've heard a few concerns here tonight, but I want to refocus the board on the business plan that they've proposed, which will be transformative to the piece of land that they're working on with this project. Their design, which has been developed with a team of accomplished landscape architects and engineers, is thoughtful. It's very sensitive to the rural character of the neighborhood, and it is respectful of the neighboring properties. What it will tell you after 20 years in agriculture, preserving and activating farmland requires the kind of entrepreneurial vision that Kate and Jessica have shared with you tonight. Projects like the barns demonstrate that working farmland can be both economically viable and genuinely enriching to the public. And I believe the county should be eager to support landowners that are willing to make that commitment. It is, after all, economic viability of farmland that will ensure the long-term preservation of Albemarle County's farmland. I believe that the barns will beautify this landscape. They will put the land to productive use, and they're going to offer meaningful access to the community, all while remaining well within the character of the surrounding rural area. And further, but I think most importantly, we see the great care and sensitivity that Kate and Jessica have brought to the design and the presentation of their plan. And we know that this will translate into the way they operate their agricultural business and any special events that they host. So I strongly encourage you to recommend this for consideration by the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you guys for having us. Richard Fox is my name. The purpose of an SUP in the county generally seems to boil down between vested rights versus granted rights. The one-size-fits-all model for a special events SUP application that Albemarle County often uses oftentimes muddies the waters of clarity of what granted rights the applicant is truly seeking. This oftentimes raises community concerns and fear of the unknown, and reasonably so. That is precisely why the Barnes proposal is refreshing. What the applicant is seeking is merely a slight, intentional, and minimal impact expansion of their already vested rights within the rural area. They are seeking ways to incorporate the community into the fold of their regenerative farm and nothing more. The occasional yoga class on site, occasional farm-to-table course with local chefs, small book readings, all aim to bring in attendees to experience the peace and serenity of the county's rural area while being able to share and educate them on regenerative agriculture and permaculture. These small capped attendance events will not generate any noise or light pollution. They will not generate any additional traffic beyond what is already vested to the property through production agriculture by right use. And most importantly, the products raised and grown on this farm can be incorporated into these gatherings. What is currently open cow pasture monoculture is already in the early stages of being amended and repurposed into a biodiverse regenerative operation. Bees and honey, free-range chickens and eggs, medicinal herbs, vegetable and flower gardens, native grasses, and preservation of the stunning arboriculture are all part of the vested rights of this property. How intrinsic for the community it would be if they could experience the biodiversity this project aims to bring. The applicant has gone above and beyond by ensuring and promising to employ all standards for entrance and traffic control proposed by VDOT. They've promised screening for neighbors' protection. They've been more than respectful to the natural landscape insofar as positioning the barn structure in a way that will not harm the natural flora and fauna of the property. Let's be clear what this project is not. This project is not a wedding venue. It is not for large late-night gatherings. This project is not going to promote amplified music. This project is simply not an event center, and the applicants are willing to accept conditions to codify that. This is, in my opinion, speaking as a generational cattle farmer in Albemarle County, the perfect use of this property. By asking to be granted the slightest extension of their vested rights, the property would be able to become something the county can be proud of and use to educate the community and other farmers about the positive attributes regenerative farming has on the land. This should be heralded as a model moving forward, and I urge you to please vote yes on the Barnes SUP. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last three people I have signed up on the sign-in sheet are Stephen Dunstan, Kyle McCrary, and Maury Carr.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Dunstan. I've been a gardener for almost 40 years. I first started working for the Gilmans in 2011. and they have been incredible stewards of the land and their trees. They have so many wonderful, huge live oaks there that have spared no cost to take care of them. And they're very much concerned about the nature, about having making the property better, making the land better, helping the trees, planting the right trees, and taking care of the nature. And I think it's a wonderful educational opportunity for the community. My daughter in her Montessori school, I'm sure, would be welcome to come there for some educational information. And they're both, Jess and Kate are incredibly well educated for that. And I think it would be a fantastic opportunity. And I would hate to see the community lose that chance to have such a great opportunity. That's what I got to say.
Right.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kyle McCrory, and I wanted to say a few quick words in support of the Barnes project on Garth Road. As a bit of background, I was born and raised in Western Albemarle County and have worked with plants my entire career. I've been involved in starting and operating 3 agricultural businesses in Charlottesville and have been previously involved in larger scale sustainable farming in other cities. I've moved back to Charlottesville twice now to prioritize raising our family here and currently reside in Western Albemarle County, a few miles from the Barnes site. I've gotten to know the folks behind the Barnes project and have gone through a lot of their materials and believe this is a well thought out, community focused passion project that has real potential as a sustainable local business. And it would be a shame not to grant them their special use permit. I firmly believe that the Barnes will enrich our community by providing access to our uniquely beautiful landscape in a way that teaches and promotes stewardship of the land through regenerative and sustainable practices and hyper-local vertically integrated product offerings. Through working and playing on our land with my own 3 young kids and through volunteering in their school gardening programs, I've seen firsthand the benefits that access to and education in our natural world can bring to young and old minds alike. And I think there's a real educational opportunity here for our community. I hope we can welcome and support this project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for letting me say a few words. My name is Mari Carr, and I also grew up in Western Albemarle County, and my dad lives just on the other side of Foxfield, so not far away. I'm very familiar with the safety and traffic issues on Garth Road and feel all of those things that everyone has said. And I believe that the county has a larger issue with safety and traffic on Garth Road that is separate to, but related to the conversation that we're having today. I can speak primarily to knowing Kate Gilman, who is behind this project with her partner, Jess. I've had the great pleasure of knowing her for 20 plus years now and have heard about this idea from its inception, just a small grain in her head, to what it is today. And I can speak to her as an incredibly thoughtful and caring and warm community member. And I truly have heard her speak of this from day one as a small community space where small groups can learn about the land and regenerative practices and the environment that surrounds. And I think that that's just a wonderful thing and an asset to bring to our community. I believe that this space would be good not only for the community, but also the neighborhood on Garth Road. I think it has the opportunity to bring people closer together. And if there's anyone who can do it, it's Kate Gilman and of course Jess alongside of her as well. So I am supportive. I'm aware of the safety concerns and I have full respect for those. And again, think that is an issue we need to take on as a county together. But I just think what a gem of a human and what a gem of a neighbor. So thanks for the chance to say that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Please come forward. And state your name and residence.
Yes, my name is Barbara Alter. My residence is 2274 Garth Road, stone's thrown away from the property. My concerns have already been covered, but I want to make it doubly underlined. Your suggestion, your presentation, the perpetuity of this project is what concerns me, the event portion. There is no doubt that these ladies have done an incredible.
Ma'am, you have to face the mic
Oh, I'm
because we're
sorry.
recording. It's okay.
I'm sorry. There's no doubt that these ladies have a wonderful idea as to the project. I really like the agribusiness of it. But the event section for me is totally out and I'm opposed to it for the numerous and countless times it's been recorded. Secondly, I've had recent surgery, so I can't read too well, to see too well, but I've read through a lot of the stuff on the web and it has come to we started at a project that looked feasible and it has grown up and is asking too much, too soon within a time span like this. It has gone from 4 events a year with 150 people. Now it's 24 events. If you stack what they can do every day, month, every day, it says daily. It doesn't say we have 2 days down or 3 days, daily events, monthly events, and then the 24 events, and you just put it on a calendar. I mean, you have a highway going on. Secondly, is the analysis for transport. If I read those documents correctly, the basis of that document is a 2024 report where they talk about the 5,000 trips. 2 years old, Crozet has grown. I live across the street constantly. There's at least once every other month a car in my swale. It's a very, very dangerous project and the hours are too long. Net, too long, the project, hours, and too many events. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have some more folks who'd like to come up. Everyone's so polite here. Just come on up.
I'm Hay Hardy. I live on 2720 Hunt Country Lane. I've been there since 1987. And I travel that road multiple times a day because children go to school, pick up children, after school activities, etc. And I noticed through almost 50 years how the traffic has grown on that road. The project that Ms. Gilman proposed is wonderful. I love to have something like that. Just that I wish there's another entry not through Garth Road, somewhere else that get to it, because Garth Road is just not a road that can handle that much more traffic. It's not impacting just us, which is immediately, but think about all the neighborhoods past that point, like Whippoorwill, River Run. There's multiple neighborhoods whose parents has to travel multiple times in and out past the entrance, and also affect the neighborhoods before that property because people coming to town, from town to the property would also cause traffic for people even in Ivy Farms to get there. So my main concern is I love the project. I think it's perfect. If there's somewhere you can airdrop those people in, it'd be perfect. But Garth Road is just not a road that can handle that. And I can only see that it's going to have more accidents. People will be complaining, going to work, coming home from work, taking kids to school. It's just going to be a mess. I don't have to do any of those now. So I'm just speaking for people who are there because my children are grown, so it's fine. So that's my point. I think that's the main point that I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have another gentleman to come up.
Good evening, Blair Kelly, 2140 Garth Road, almost across the street. We've lived where we are for 22 years now, and previous to that, I lived on a farm just west, so about 40 years out in that general direction. I think this project is really interesting, fascinating, a lot about it that I really like. The thing that concerns me is that I think might be losing the distinction between their business plan and their aspirations for the project and the special use permit. And hearing them talk and reading the specifics of the plan, 95% of what they plan to do could be done without the special use permit. And it's the special use permit that I think has all of my neighbors here very concerned. Not only because the volume of the traffic and the pacing of the vents for a property that's only 10 and a half acres seems excessive, or it seems like it could be a lot. Now, I trust them and I think they would monitor it well. But as Commissioner Brown pointed out, there's no guarantee that the next owner would put those kind of parameters on that type of activity. And so worst case scenario, weddings with 150 plus people on a 10-acre property surrounded by very, quiet residential properties absolutely would change the character of the neighborhood and be significantly detrimental, which is what the Planning Commission is supposed to consider. So if you do decide that you want to approve the special use permit, which I don't think is necessary for most of what they want to do, I would at least hope that you would take them up on their offer to strike through, no weddings and try to codify the fact that there will not be, so that cannot be the case for the potential future owner of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to speak to this? All right, is there anyone online? No, ma'am. Okay, with that, the applicant has the chance to come back up and respond to any comments they heard.
Hey again. I'll keep it brief because I know you've heard a lot from ourselves, you've heard a lot from folks, and everyone's got to get to dinner. But I really just want to say a sincere thank you. I want to say thank you for having us move through this process. I know some folks in the community might read the iterations in this process as a negative, but I think it's actually a testimonial to how this works. And you really work hand in hand with the county to establish what the right place for what your dream is. And so we feel really thankful, really confident that we're coming to you authentically, that we're coming to you after participating in this process as it's meant to be participated in. And I want to just make a distinction that the frustration about Garth Road is shared. We're your neighbor, we share that. I think it would be a shame to hamstring farms that are trying to be dynamic because of the nature of a road that's not being addressed at a larger scale. And so I want to offer up our energy, our support, our participation, and whatever we can do as Garth Road residents to make that happen. And something I was thinking as I was listening to folks give their feedback here, and obviously you have to have thick skin to go through this process. That's just a part of it. But I was thinking it's really great to see you all. Like, it's great to meet neighbors. And so whatever the context is, I think we're all really aligned on safety on this road. I think the question of what comes next is, for us, the ability to be collaborative, to be dynamic, to be a really special place that we will safeguard, that we are happy to condition, that we're really participating in the most honest way you can in this process. We're here with open minds. We're here with a lot of work behind us and a lot of time devoted to this. So we take it very seriously. I also want to remind folks that, 150 people does not mean 150 cars. The math on that is 60 cars with anticipation of carpooling. So some of these numbers get thrown around, and I just want to make sure we're all kind of holding them the same. And with a place like Oakencroft, the majority of those acres are vines. Their operational acreage is not dissimilar to what we're talking about in terms of accessible acreage. So I know this is not traditional because we're not trying to do something traditional. We're trying to be a really engaged, accessible small farm. And we're happy to pave the way for small farms that are going to have true regenerative practices and really actually secure the future of a pastoral Albemarle County, which happens because we are actually able to keep this land and invest in the soil and have folks devote acreage to it. So sincere thank you. Thank you to the board. Thank you to my neighbors. I'm happy to chat afterwards. We come to this really wanting to be in this dialogue. So thank you for participating. And we look forward to hearing from the committee. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, with that, we'll close the public portion of this hearing and take it back to the commission for deliberation. Also want to thank everyone who came out tonight. This is part of the democratic process for all voices to be heard and considered, as well as those people who wrote to us online who may not be here. So with that, who would like to offer their thoughts on this application? Pardon? Take a break. I have a request from Commissioner to take a 5-minute recess, just because we've been sitting here for a really long time, as have you. So we'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll resume at 8:10.
Thank you.
We're live again.
All right. I'm recalling the Albemarle Planning Commission back to order to begin our deliberation about SP 2025-0008 and SE 2026-00017. I think there's too many zeros in that, but anyway. Who'd like to go first to talk about your impressions and?
Well, I actually wondered if I could get a clarifying question again from staff.
Absolutely.
Just because I think we've got the agricultural events, the farm events that are allowed by right.
They will happen anyway.
They would happen anyway, right? And so, like food related workshops could be, those could just happen. And the workshops 4-day, whatever, that could just happen. Or like a chef that uses some of the ingredients could serve a meal to 40 people. That could just, I mean, that's sort of ag related food. Yeah, that could just happen, right?
Yes, those would fall under 5158. Generally speaking, the examples you're giving.
Yeah, or like self-picking crops, you could have scores of people out there. Yeah, okay. So this is really, it's about other kinds of events like a film screening or acoustic music, or even if this place was sold like a corporate retreat or a banquet or something, that's what this would cover. Okay, yeah, that was my question. I do, I think probably several of us have a similar idea about the friendly amendment to condition 2, just to add weddings are not permitted, but.
Well, I'll have our legal counsel weigh in on that and your
Okay.
ability to change zoning.
Right.
Oh.
I would like to remind the commission that what they are seeking is a special use of the property. And in doing so, the commission may add conditions that reasonably relate to the impacts of the special use. And the conditions need to be roughly proportional to the impacts of the use. Special use permits cannot change the zoning ordinance. And so special events are defined in the zoning ordinance to include certain types of events, but not limited to, so there may be others as well. So it would be difficult to provide a condition excluding events that are already defined as events allowed as special events in the zoning ordinance.
Fair enough.
But to follow up with that, you could, for example, limit the number of special events. Is that correct?
Exactly. So a
If you thought
condition-
that
if there's
impacts to
concern-
traffic
there-
and noise and whatnot
That is
would be too much at the current number of events that's in the application.
That's correct. So the commission could limit the number of events that could take place, maybe the time or duration of the special events. If there is a reasonable relation to the impact that it may cause, there could be a condition to restrict or limit that.
Fair. Thanks for the clarification.
Right. And as if I understood from the applicant, part of their rationale for why they want to have, say, yoga, although I was starting to wonder if you would be picking crops while doing a yoga stretch, but that's kind of far-fetched. Yeah, crop yoga. But that would be related to agriculture, I guess. But I think that their idea was to try to bring in people who are not necessarily going to think of regenerative agriculture as the first thing they think of when they get up in the morning. and who came out and then thereby got exposed to this and then got excited about it and went home and grew organic tomatoes or whatever. So I think that's what they're after with these events. The question is whether these non-agricultural events, whether there are too many of them to suit the community. To the community, they will be able to have events and have people come out for agricultural, how to jar your jam or, I had an organic farm, so I do actually know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it doesn't sound like it. But the point is that, they will still be able to do all those things. It's the question here as to whether they can do non-agricultural related events that are at a number that would cause excessive disruption to the community or unacceptable disruption. So I'm going to stop talking and turn to the woman on my left who I've had my back to. If she has comments she'd like to make.
I think for me, the last speaker, I think, said it very clearly, which is there's the use and then there's the impact, right? And I hear what the community is saying about impact, and I understand the fear that can be had when it's related to safety and traffic. And I believe that to people who live in the area, 150 people sounds like a lot. And to me, that is not a lot. So to me, restricting it to 150 people, I think is very reasonable. And I think the number of car trips proportionately to what currently happens on Garth Road is extremely minimal. I think there's a way to verbalize it to make it sound scarier than it actually will be. And I think I can understand why people have feelings that way, but I don't think that impacts the actual facts of the trips and the number of the impact to the community. That's my opinion. I think it's a wonderful project. I have no problems with it.
Other perspectives or comments? Go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank the applicant, and I think the proposal is really well done. I really appreciate the authenticity of the presentation. I can say that that's not always the case, that spirit of authenticity that comes before us. I do think that there is some merit in us discussing the future in light of what our council has shared. I still think there's a space to discuss what kind of parameters could take place if the land changed uses, changed owners, right? I do think that deserves merit. And one of the things that I heard, throughout the presentations were what those non-primary uses could be. And part of me is like, doesn't it feel like they would even generate 150 people? It's possible they could, but it doesn't seem that would be a normal occurrence. And so I wonder, is it worth us discussing what could right sizing the quantity of folks or right sizing the number of events that are non-essential to the program, right? To the program space. What does that start to look like? Like 24 times at 150 people each. Does it sound like that's actually what would actually happen, right? With the film screening? Maybe. I mean, it's Michael Jackson's Thriller or something. Maybe you get that, right? But I think by all intents and purposes, those kinds of events doesn't seem to ring alarm bells, but I could see that changing perhaps if the land changed use. So those are the things I would like to discuss. So
Let me ask staff or council, whoever is most appropriate or wants to answer. We could decide to limit the number of events, but also the number of people per event as well.
That's correct. The commission could make a recommendation that if they wanted to recommend approval, but with the condition that it's limited to X number of events and X number of attendees per event, you could, that could be part of your recommendation.
Right. And we're not having the applicant back up again, just to be clear, but it seemed like some of the kinds of things they were talking about doing would be like, maybe the film screening is, 30 people show up, or it's a poetry reading and, 25 people show up. It doesn't sound like a lot of that their intention is to have a lot of events with 150 people. Now, to your point, the zoning runs with the land. So if they get abducted by aliens or are not immortal, a new owner in the future could decide to have weddings. All of those events could be weddings. So it's not necessarily germane as to what their intent is. No one, I don't, up here, I think doubts your intent at all. And so I think that in order to ensure that the future owners of this property hold reasonable size events, and I understand, again, your business model is to try to bring some people who wouldn't normally come out to expose them. That's part of your educational mission. So it kind of is tied to the agriculture. But I think maybe the number of people and the number of events is what's causing some of the heartburn. And I think that the commission might do a good service to the community and to the applicant by restricting the number of events and the number of people per event, under the idea that we're trying to limit the impacts for traffic and noise and all of that. Notwithstanding your point that it's not concerned about the number of people, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if we could get the screen to display again that showed the limits on the by right farm related events.
Mhm.
How many people? I think it was 200 people and like 24 a year for those. So like,
The slide with all the
yeah, with the
numbers.
And so, yeah, there it is. Thank you. I mean, the thing I'm struck by is how, we could have, they could have, eat some food with a thing and have 200 people at the event, 24 times a year. So I don't really know that I find it like substantially different if they're just like watching a film instead of, learning about botanicals.
We don't have, this commission does not have a lot of power to substantively limit the amount of visitors and activities at this.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's not, he's
But no, what
saying
I'm saying
that
is-
by right, they have 200 or fewer people and 24 or fewer events by right, by 5.158.
I understand
Yeah.
that. That's exactly what I understand.
Yeah, and so this would just be like, if we also added, like, let's, for the, the argument of some folks we heard, worst case scenario, that there's also now 24 weddings a year of 150 people on top of a bunch of events where there's 200 people picking apples or whatever. That's what you're talking about. I mean, I don't know that the number of people, if we allow 200 people by right to do an ag-related thing, allowing 150 people to do something that's less ag-related doesn't feel like a
Well,
giant-
you could say that if just using that agricultural example, the one right above it, they can have 24 of those by right.
Mhm.
And then if you say they can also, if you just go with the application as stated, then you're doubling the number of events they can have. So
But you're not doubling the number of weddings. You're only doubling the number of events is what we're saying. So
Yeah.
the other events, the other 24 events would be could only be completely agricultural in nature. You're not having 50 events that are weddings.
Right. We
Correct.
understand. No, sorry. I was gonna say, I think we understand. I think my point was protect the future proofing of it. This is cumulative. So theoretically, it would be 48 events. That's literally almost one a week. I'm not saying they would do that, but theoretically, you could do 48 events, 200s at 24, 150 at 24. And to me, that feels out of whack with Garth Road, right? I'm not saying they would do that, but I'm saying based off what's been forming today, that is the worst case scenario. So that's why I said it doesn't make sense to maybe right size it. Maybe it doesn't, but I think we ought to discuss that.
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
that's where I'm at too. I agree with the uses. I think that, I mean, it's a shame we can't strike weddings. I know that we just went through this process with staff about looking at our zoning ordinance. I don't know, in that process, we identified some of the classifications for rural uses that would be a little bit more narrow than what we have here. But that said, I mean, I do think this needs to be right-sized. I do wonder, the other thing I look at here is the applicant said they were not interested in amplified music, and yet this does include a provision for outdoor amplified music. I'm wondering if that's something that could be struck. That's the thing that we could strike, correct?
If there's a concern that outdoor music would have an impact on the property, that is a condition that could be proposed to limit outdoor music, or maybe during a time frame or just in general. to the commission. The commission finds there's an impact that needs to be addressed. Yes. They
Okay,
can-
thank you. So I mean, I think, for example, limiting outdoor amplified music to the daylight hours, for example, would be one thing you could do, or just striking it altogether. But I mean, also, I just think the total number of events, and when you add it to the agricultural events that can already occur, when you maximize both those things together, not saying the applicant would do that, but some future person certainly could do that. And I've been in Albemarle County long enough to see properties do change hands. And, there's loopholes that occur when people inherit a property that has that, some additional use. So,
I'll just add too that this is yes, it's an agricultural site and it's zoned agricultural. It's also not a big site. So that's why there can be a concern with sound carries. A certain number of people opening, closing car doors, gathering, coming and going. There is noise associated with that. The applicants already said they had no interest in having outdoor amplified music. We can't have them offer us conditions that, we cannot negotiate conditions from the dais, but we can take a look at the one thing that we do have control over, decide whether we think that limiting the number of those extra events, which as they said, are not central to their core business, are mostly intended to get people exposed to their agricultural operation. So I think you could also argue they didn't necessarily need that many events. I'll leave it at that. You wanted to make a point, I think.
I completely agree with that. I feel like it was nice to hear the community members even suggest that in a lot of the comments, that they could be more supportive if there were fewer events or if there was like less frequency. And I think that really opens the door to perhaps finding a way that, the neighbors can really get behind the project. If we revisit the frequency number, it sounds like even larger events for collaboration could fall under what the by right gathering, gathering is allowed. So just thinking about how could you right size the frequency, perhaps reducing that number of 12 events, additional events that aren't related to agro.
I think it's 24.
24, sorry, to a number that feels more right. I mean, ultimately, with or without the special use permit, my hope is that, this is a catalyst for VDOT to address a bigger issue. But I feel like there's probably a lot of room for you to accomplish what you want to do with a lower number of events under the special use permit.
Okay, so back to us, we're the ones who have to make the recommendation.
so I'm going to throw out the number 12. And keeping in mind, this is going to go through the Board of Supervisors too, right? So if we say we want to limit it to 12, they still get to go before the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors can say, well, no, they should be higher or lower, and some argument could be made, right?
Right, we're the advisors to the board.
Correct. So it doesn't end with us. We're just simply making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. So my recommendation that we would go with 12, and I mean, I think the concern I would have, given the size of the property, and as you said, the proximity to neighbors and people across the street, I mean, I would like to see some limitation on outdoor amplified music.
You could simply say no outdoor amplified
Yeah,
music.
I would say let's start with that. No outdoor amplified music.
Okay, so your proposal is for 12, that's limited to half of the events, 12, and no outdoor amplified music. What do other commissioners think?
I'll go. And the first thing too, I wanted to say to the neighbors and the community in general is that, yeah, Garth Road, wow. I get it. Road safety is a real thing, and I understand Garth Road. I mean, as I heard somebody say recently, you couldn't pay me to ride my bike on Garth Road. But it sounds like VDOT I have no say over VDOT. Maybe we could somehow telegraph to them somehow that speed limit issues, maybe it could be lowered, maybe some better signage, some strips, maybe a stoplight at Hunt Country Store, that intersection, something that would have impacts on the safety of the road, because it's not safe. We're hearing that over and over. That said, I don't think this parcel has a lot to do, like this one parcel is not,
Proportionally.
yeah. I'm hearing some of y'all use this term right-sized, and I don't know what that means. It's just vibes. I don't, I have no idea what it means. And I also don't think limiting outdoor amplified music makes any sense when there's already a sound ordinance for how many decibels can be heard at the edge of the property. Like, we already have that. It just feels like it's, here's why I'm leaning a little libertarian on this. It's not because I'm politically libertarian, but it's that I also am not an advocate for a planned economy. I kind of thought folks around here kind of lean toward market economy, so I guess I learn something every day. But what we have is a proposal for an agricultural educational business, with a sideline of supporting arts and community gatherings and maybe some yoga or stuff. And even if it did include banquets and corporate retreats or the occasional wedding or something, okay, so we got to think about the future that way. But it makes me ask, what is the purpose of our rural area? And is it for us like an agricultural business, one that's economically viable, one that our community can appreciate and learn from and enjoy, come out and be a part of? We have so many rural spaces, including a lot of these conservation easement spaces, where people don't get to enjoy them. They just drive by it. Oh, that's pretty. This is a way that actually people can be a part of our rural area and be there. So my question that I come back to is our rural area for people, or is it just for the exclusive use of a few? And I would like to have a rural area that's for the use of the many. And so what I heard sounds like a facility that can do that. I find it pretty refreshing. I'd also love in the future I get a bad rep sometimes for criticizing Albemarle County's like fake farms where it's just bush hogging grass a couple times a year. I'm very in favor of an actual thriving agricultural economy. I think there's a lot more we could do to do that, in terms of county supports and policies we could put in place to encourage young producers and land access and co-ops and all the rest. That's another conversation. This is just on its own proposal that I think is pretty great. I don't know why, based on vibes, we would want to limit necessarily the economic viability of what seems like a good business proposal.
Well, I would just suggest to you that there's a reason why the county in its ordinance for ag tourism does limit the number of events, right? If there was no impact on surrounding communities, we just say you can have unlimited agricultural events anytime you want with unlimited people.
Yes.
But that is not what it says.
Yeah.
So we have limited it. So the question tonight is, are we going to allow non-agricultural events to occur? And if so, are we inclined to in any way limit what the sort of base ordinance says, which is what they've come forward with? It's also possible the applicant may work with staff in the interim between our decision and the board to create something that would be more palatable. But you're right, we're not using some kind of calculus to determine that 75 people is too many and
Sure.
30 is perfect and 150 is outrageous. We don't have, there's not an equation we're using. Again, it is a small parcel. You are a sound engineer. You know how sound carries very well. So when you add a lot of people, it does add to the amount of times that there is extra disturbance in the general area.
But it is by nature limited. It is not unlimited. He's not
Right.
suggesting that we give them unlimited. He's suggesting that the limit that they've proposed is actually the right size. So I think I am hopefully echoing what Commissioner Moore is saying, in that I don't know that we have enough information to determine whether 24 or 12 is the right size, because what's correct is going to depend on a matter of opinion. And I don't believe that the number of the frequency of people visiting the property based on what they've asked for is any more or less impactful at 12 or 24. I just reducing it by half is giving a feeling that we're doing something, but is it really helping, or is it just making it harder for someone to have the type of business they want to have? And personally, I don't see the difference between the type of I don't see a need to restrict the type of special event. The ordinance is the way that it is, with defining special events, and weddings is one of those. So I'm not like, and
We're not doing that because we're not.
I know we're not allowed to, but it's been mentioned a couple of times, even by the people here. So I'm not trying to advocate for weddings, but I'm also trying to say I don't really understand the difference between what we see in our mind as a negative impact of a wedding event versus a corporate event. I just don't think that there's subjective judgment there that we can place on that. I don't, they have the time restrictions. They've asked for some, and I didn't hear them say that they don't intend to have amplified music. I heard them say that they don't regularly intend to have it. So they might want to have it occasionally for certain special events, but not all events. So I wouldn't feel comfortable asking them to restrict that. But
So I will point out here that this is one of the things here, as well as, we had two different applications before us tonight. And they were very different. One was very much isolated in rural area on the, larger property. And so I think that this is, as you say, every application is different, right? Every situation is different.
Sure.
And I think, you notice the lack of opposition to the first applicant. And so we're dealing with this, but it's worth noting there are two development rights on this property. And I point that out because if we think about this from a residential use perspective, the water use associated with like two houses, right? Compared to the water use of 150 people at an event. The amount of sewage generated by 150 people in an event is not inconsequential. So, from a natural resources perspective, when we look at the uses of the rural area and the impacts that occur, and, we talk about the impacts of events, the impacts on traffic, those are real impacts. And so, when we're trying to balance these competing needs in the comprehensive plan, I think, we have to look at things like, how overburdened Garth Road is, how overburdened, our water supply is in Ivy. Let's not forget, within my lifetime, the whole reason Ivy was downzoned was because it ran out of water. There's a whole subdivision that got built, the houses got installed, and turned on the faucets, and there was no water. So that's a relevant thing. That's why I'm in support of limiting this and understanding that there's gonna be dialogue between now and the Board of Supervisors. We're not making the final determination, but we are setting some groundwork for where negotiation can occur between now and when the Board of Supervisors meet. And so
I just want to quickly say that I don't think that water's a factor because they're going to be on a well
that's very much a factor.
and they're going to have porta-johns for the big events.
Yeah, the fact it's on a well is the factor, because you have very limited groundwater in Ivy. So, they're not supplied with public water, so it's not unlimited.
I think Commissioner King was
No,
referring to the porta.
What, I'm sorry. Yeah, what I'm saying is there may be one or two bathrooms in this one building that would not have like the actual use of water and the use of the septic field based on the number of people that would visit the property at different times, with it not being inhabited by a family of 5 on 2 houses, would be less. It's going to be less because when they have 150 people, it's a porta-john. So that water actually didn't come from that parcel. It's actually less impactful than the 2 houses. I believe.
Well, I don't think we want to get into a debate about exactly what their water yield is going to be because we don't have that data
Well, then,
before us.
well, then we shouldn't be talking about it.
Well, it's fine. It's fine to bring up the concern, but we can't really get into a lengthy debate because we don't have the facts before us and what their demand would be. They did say they would use Porta Johns for larger events. So some on the commission seem to have an appetite to limit the number of events. Some have no appetite to put limit, and maybe the rest of you are somewhere between that. But I'd like to see if we can get to a motion to let these good people get on with their lives and prepare for the next step of the process.
So might I suggest that we propose the conditions and let them be voted up or down?
You could make you could make, I'll let you speak in a sec. You can make a motion, no, your colleague next to you. She looks excited. She didn't raise her hand, but back to you. You can make a motion to approve with X, Y, and Z additional conditions. You could make a motion to deny. So
But we would have to all agree to the same
yes, and
condition. So that I,
it would be a motion. It would need to be a second in order for that motion to carry. And then we would have discussion and we would vote that up or down. And then somebody could also make a motion for a friendly amendment to the conditions. And we could also go from there.
Were you asking if we could have a informal vote on a condition? Is that what you were asking?
There's no such thing as an informal vote.
No.
We would
So-
simply, we can discuss
Okay.
more what the conditions might be.
So I'm willing to make a motion then, in that case. We can see where it goes.
Sure.
I move to recommend approval of SB 2025-0008, the Barn Special Events, with the conditions of events over 150 people shall be limited to 12 a year and no outdoor amplified music.
Over 150?
Oh, no, sorry, up to, sorry, of, like,
Up to.
yeah,
Up to 150.
Okay,
yes, thank
what
you.
she said. Okay.
Yeah, what she said.
Is there a second?
May I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please.
Does the commission also recommend the other conditions as recommended in the staff report?
Yes, and with the conditions recommended in the staff report. Thank you.
Is there a second? I'll second, just to move us along. All right, now discussion.
I have a question about the motion. So I want to make sure I understand, is there a lower amount of people that you would allow more events for? So you said, the way you stated the condition was that 150 or less for no more than 12 events. Does that mean they can not have more than 12 events?
That's an excellent point. I think I would certainly be amenable to an amendment that says, and is there a number we could come up with where we don't care? Because I mean, there's definitely a number where I don't care.
Do you mean 60, like an event for 60 people?
Yeah.
Could be okay
Between,
24 times a
yeah,
year.
there we go. We can say 60 to 150 people. I mean,
We can't give a range. You're either capping it or you're not.
I would suggest that we either change the frequency or the number, but think about it in advance. Which you're more concerned about? Is it the number of people at the special event, or is it the frequency of events, period, regardless of the number of people? I think it has to be one or the other.
I think for
It could be
the
both.
non-aligned purposes of what they're trying to do, I feel like it's the frequency of events that matters more because they can have a lot of events that are tied to their core business. And I think 12 still sounds like a lot. I would lean in closer to 8.
All right, so is
So
that,
I will
Yeah,
say,
go ahead.
just for what it's worth, I do get a lot of cars coming into and out of that spot at the same time is challenging. I've seen private school pickups, for example. It's challenging. And so I actually have no problem with 24 events, but maybe 65 or 75 people as a cap is somewhat more reasonable. And I think that also gets to the point about effectively limiting weddings in the future because you're not going to have very many weddings of only 65 people.
that's a fair point.
that's a fair point. Okay, so
I- oh.
I will amend that to,
You have to does he, to our council, does he have to withdraw his motion? It's been,
Yes, go ahead and withdraw the motion. And
yeah, I'll
someone can make
withdraw
a
the
new
motion. I'll restate it.
Before you do, I'm sorry,
Okay.
while we're still in discussion, I'm not sure how I feel about the banning of outdoor amplified music. I was wondering if we can talk about that a little bit more, like the thinking behind that.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the size of the property. Particularly, I mean, the part of these events, it allows for events that go up to 10 PM at night. I think, you know, that it's also the associate, like, when you add in the amplified music, the kinds of events that you might have along with the amplified music, people leaving at 10 PM, you start to get a confluence of things where the likelihood of that impact to the community feels to me to be higher. Now, that's why I initially said amplified music only during the daytime. So
the applicant did say that they didn't intend to have events with outdoor amplified music.
they did say that.
So they're not desiring that, so I don't,
Yeah.
but you have to think about the future people who are not them, you know, in the next life.
And they can always come back to this commission and ask for that.
Right, correct.
Can I make, I want to make one more quick statement about traffic if I can, since we're still discussing. It's been a while, but I lived in this neighborhood, in my early 20s, and I also travel the roads of Albemarle County regularly. And I have a background in, you know, degree in an engineering field that does include traffic. So I think from my perspective, there are safety concerns for lots of areas of roads throughout the county. And I think that, you know, everybody has their own litmus test or range, right, of what's safe and what's not safe based on where they live and what the roadway is like. When I look at the county roads as a whole, I think of, and I was looking it up, I haven't had a chance to verify, but I think of Garth Road as a thoroughfare. You know, I mean, it's a 50-mile-an-hour road that carries people to all different communities, not just this community. So, you know, I think it's important that we don't limit a viable agricultural business based on concerns for road safety, because the road, again, my opinion based on my observation of a lot of roads in Albemarle County, does not feel like it falls on the least safest road, you know. I think that there's, when you live there and it's your front yard, it obviously feels very personal. But I have lived on that road and on many other roads, and, you know, it's just not a cul-de-sac. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna have a lot of traffic. And those cars aren't going to just be going to the Hunt Country area. They are going to be going to Whitehall and Owensville and a lot of places. So again, I think the impact of this one small business and the amount of trips and cars that are going to be turning in and out of this driveway is very minimal compared to Garth Road from beginning to end.
I hear that, but it's also death by 1,000 cuts.
It's also what?
A death by 1,000 cuts. In the sense that we've allowed, you know, we had this area, we designated this as a national bike route. And well, I mean, it was designated as a national bike route, and we proceeded to ignore it my entire lifetime. And we've added use after use. We've failed to do the infrastructure improvements on it that we should have done. And now I heard someone actually just recently refer to it as the Crozet bypass, which is yeah, that apparently now that people in Crozet being frustrated with going on 250, they are deciding to go down 810 and then take Garth Road into town instead. So that's becoming a thing. So I think, while we're looking at one isolated case, it's worth looking at this from a planning perspective in the sense that we need to have a philosophy about like, hey, this is a road that's starting to be overburdened, and until VDOT and county staff work together to make improvements on this road, we need to think carefully about the uses that occur on it.
But do we have evidence that the road is overburdened? Is there evidence that the
think-
road is overburdened?
I think we heard evidence from citizens in this room tonight that it was overburdened.
Yeah, we do not have data from VDOT tonight because they're not required at this stage in the planning process. VDOT is not
understand.
required to weigh in. I'm just saying that for the benefit of everyone, not you
Yeah.
personally. So, but I'll just go back to the fact that this is a small site. In my boring statement, that sound carries, so there is more disturbance. This applicant is not, we're not here tonight to rule on whether they can have agricultural events. They can have all the agricultural events and agricultural education that our current ordinance allows. We're in no way restricting that. The question really is, how many events? So Ms. Brown said she would be more comfortable in the neighborhood of, I think you said 8 events. I'm more in that camp. I'm more like, let them have a handful of maybe 8 events where they can have poets or guitarists or whatever coming out and exposing some different audiences to their business model, who would then return, hopefully in the business model, to go to a jam event or a canning event, whatever they're doing. It's a promotional tool for them, is how I understood it, to bring in more people. And they also want to serve the community. I got all those points from you all. But we, as a commission, have to decide whether their desire is worth the additional impacts on the community. And whether you agree or not that it's an impact, I feel like it's a little more germane to whether the people who live there feel that it's an impact. They're the ones with a daily lived experience on that road. I understand you were there a long time ago. There's a lot more traffic there today. So I would wonder if you would like to amend your motion. I'm so lost in where we are. He's
already withdrawn his
We've
motion.
withdrawn it. We're in discussion.
Do we have another person that would go with 8 events?
I would.
Okay, then let's go with that.
So please restate your motion in a formal manner, sir.
May I make a suggestion to the commission for clarity? A suggested motion for recommending approval could be recommending approval with the SB conditions numbered 1 and 3 as proposed by staff. Those deal with general accord with the plan and landscaping pursuant to the plan, and a reduction in either the number of events or a reduction in number of attendees, which is condition number 2. And then you all can add, if you want, removal or limitation of condition number 4, which is amplified music.
You want to say that, Karen?
I think that, do you want me to make the motion? I'll just make it. All right. I move to recommend approval of SP 2025-0008, the barn special events, with the conditions stated in the staff report modified as follows. I would like to modify condition number 2 to limit this to 8 events and a maximum of 60 people. And then also to modify condition number 4 to not allow amplified music.
Second.
All right, now I have discussion again.
So I want to have a question, clarification for council is, did you mean, probably you didn't, would it be possible for us to recommend it with the terminology of a condition of reduction without giving it a number?
It is possible if a commission member wanted to make a motion for reduction of either number of attendees, number of events, and limitations to music as discussed by the planning commission.
So, for example, we could recommend it with the condition and a suggestion that they work with staff to reduce it before it goes to the board of supervisors.
Yes.
I would, just as discussion, I would be more in favor of that than placing any specific limits on the applicant.
And if the commission made such a recommendation, staff would review the minutes and listen back at the discussion and also work with the applicant to make revised recommendations, revised recommended conditions before going to the board, as well as the transmittal summary that goes to the board would explain the discussion that you all had and the concerns you had about the impacts on those specific conditions.
And would that delay the,
That would be a question for staff.
I don't think we'd unduly delay. I mean, we'd have to work with the applicant, but assuming that that could be a reasonably quick process, it would not unduly delay the getting to the board.
Just to remind, our recommendation tonight is not binding on the applicant. It's simply a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. It doesn't actually establish any number. The board would take whatever numbers we came up with and they'll consider, is that too much? Is that too little?
I
Or do they
understand.
not want to do anything at all?
I understand, and I was just stating as a
Sure.
matter of discussion that I would
Sure.
be more in favor of recommending
Considered.
voting yes on a recommendation of a lowering without a specific number.
Understood.
I just would echo that. I mean, I think as much as different opinions about whether number of events or number of attendees are all here, and I think we could just take the mean and roll with that, I mean, like there's different ways to go about it, but at 60 people, 24 to 150 people, I mean, like, we're getting into the weeds in a way that I feel like could be a discussion between now and the board meeting.
I'm sort of listening to the kind of events they said they want to have. I don't imagine 150 yogis out
Well,
in the
no,
lawn.
that's exactly what I mean. Right.
So they're
Yeah.
talking, the events they described were smaller in nature.
Precisely.
But again,
Yeah.
we're trying to do something for the future as well, not them as people.
No, completely. I agree. I think, given what they're asking for to be able to do, might be something that's twice a month. And so I got no problem with 24. But for me, I think I'd be more comfortable talking about a lower number. But again, maybe that's something that we could transmit to the board with a recommendation to maybe lower the number of, in my case, I would say attendees. But that's something that the applicant and staff could work on prior to bring it to the board.
I'm in favor of giving a recommendation to the board. They're looking at us as the experts in this and not really kicking the can down the road. They can debate it and say, hey, I don't like that number. And there is no science to this. I mean, I think we all agree. If there was, we wouldn't be needed. You just plug it into an AI model and it'll spit out the answer, right?
You
So,
told us now.
right. So, I mean, that's why we're having this discussion.
Right.
I'm fine putting forth the numbers that you say. And those numbers came after much debate and discussion around what we heard, both from the community and applicants. So they're defensible. They can be changed, but I'm fine putting forth the numbers that you put in your motion to drive forward. So
I would also say that I suspect that the applicants will be working with staff on their application before it goes to the board to further adjust it. And it's not for us to tell them to do that, but will each one of us talk to our individual board members about why we held the perspective we did, and then and they'll go forward. So we have a motion, we have a second, we've had some discussion, hopefully enough discussion. If we can, I'd like to just call the vote. Madam Clerk?
Yes. Ms. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
No.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
aye.
Ms. Firehawk,
Aye.
Ms. King.
It's a reluctant aye because I want you to go forward.
All right, so it passes. You have some of the use and the events that you requested from our recommendation. As we said, it goes now to the Board of Supervisors for their final deliberation, and their voice is the final ruling. So thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and we'll give you a moment to clear the chamber. You can stay, of course, but I don't think anyone wants to listen to any more planning commission business.
Riveting. Come on. Now it's time for a mindful minute.
Mike, if you haven't figured this
No.
out. I'm not even kidding. Maybe I'm some sort of sycophant. This was awesome.
You're not a sick fan, you're just a sick app.
Yeah.
I think
It's fine.
Cheers.
Yeah, man. Yep.
I tried. I couldn't get it to everybody, but.
Gotta do as a chair.
I hate being chair now. Luis, where are you?
Yeah, I was your vice chair for a while.
Yes, and yeah, We did this.
Yeah.
Can we keep moving?
Yes, I'm ready. We can go on now. I gave them the chance. Bye, thank you. All right, so let's move on to committee reports. Any commissioners have committee reports?
Yes.
Okay,
The Crozet CAC met. Actually, Michael Barnes was there and county staff was there to give an update on the Crozet master plan and the achievements towards the goals and the Crozet master plan. And then also to talk about the activity centers and the comprehensive plan and the plan for which ones have been prioritized and moving forward on that. And there was a lot of questions from the public, mainly about prioritization. You know, shall we say, some disgruntled opinions about like whether, like when are the things prioritized in the Crozet master plan going to be, when are they going to get around to them? And so thank you, Michael, for sitting through that and other county staff. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Let's stick on the topic of CACs. Anyone else got a CAC? I have one. Do you have one?
I wasn't able to attend the
Okay.
fifth. If you were there?
Yes, ma'am, I
Okay,
was.
great.
Okay, so the Fifth and Avon CIC met. We miss you terribly.
Oh,
She could still come back.
I miss you guys.
She's always a spark of energy at our CAC. But anyway, we had the same presentation on the activity centers and next steps for adoption, or not adoption, God, we did that. Implementation of the comprehensive plan. One point of contention that was brought up by one of our supervisors, not mine, was the concern that the county is moving away from master plans and that activity center planning is replacing that. I was a little unclear on that because that wasn't my understanding, that as a county, we decided there would be no more master plans like for Fifth and Avon or Crozet, that we would just be doing activity center planning. So, Mr. Barnes, could you weigh in on that or help us understand that point, because it was confusing?
Sure. So as far as the master plans, they are still part of the comprehensive plan.
Right.
As a guy who started my career here 20 years ago and did rezonings when we didn't have master plans, I think that context that they've provided has been invaluable. And I think it makes for better reviews of legislative permits as well as the planning that we do. They are a lot of work to try and maintain. And I think what our intent is, you'll recall with the comprehensive plan, we folded the land use plans were all these different master plans. They sort of diverged. They had different comprehensive plan districts and, I mean, so it was like, we tried to bring them back into a single land use map for the county. One of the things we're going to be trying to do here and coming up is with the multimodal transportation plan is going back and trying to create a comprehensive, view of what transportation improvements need to be built in the community. And a lot of the plans or proposed things that were in this master plans will be incorporated into that multimodal plan for the community. And I think part of that it enables us to do is to sort of like judge with the very scarce resources that we have to build transportation projects, what projects do we want to build across the county and not just within individual planned areas.
Right.
So I think it will help us try to try and meet larger goals as we need to provide for multimodal transportation. And I think the list keeps going on. The Parks Department is doing, plans for the parks. And so there's this idea of what the master plans provided, especially somebody who, again, started without them, is they provided a lot of context for our community and what these issues were in these individual neighborhoods. I think right now the bigger challenge that we have is, and not to pick any particular area, but you go to a certain neighborhood, a lot of it's going to be single family housing and it'll have its transportation needs that might be in it. But the real issue that we face is how do we accommodate 31,000 people in the next 20 years in our community? And I don't think the intent, there may be some people who would, back to the single family neighborhoods, we might be able to change the zoning ordinance at some point with a zoning mod to like allow for accessory apartments or other density there. But the real density gains that we might be able to make to accommodate these people are going to be in these activity centers. These
Where
places
we have change likely and lots of.
we have changed
and
likely.
Buildings that might be repurposed or
And so
taken down.
what I've tried to do here is to say, many of the recommendations and the thoughts that were in all these master plans will continue on. They will live on more in plans that are countywide, especially when it comes to like some of the infrastructure projects that we need to build. When it comes to the land use decisions, the land use decisions are not likely to change in many of those sort of stable, single-family neighborhoods where the property's already been subdivided. No, the opportunities in these activity centers, these places of older shopping centers or other places where redevelopment might happen. And so the whole goal of the comprehensive plan was to sort of move towards trying to create some walkable places, some dense places, some places that were more urban. Those were our activity centers. And you'll recall they're actually ranked.
Right.
And so I think our focus is really to try and take on those higher ranked, the regional ones that are, you'll find around Rio and 29. You'll find up at Hollymead Town Center. You'll find at Lower Pantops. And to try and look at those places as places we can expect to try and accept, and welcome these people who will be moving to our community in a way that is beneficial for us all and hopefully sort of starts to set forth what types of coordination do we need to do with the private sector in the redevelopment of those properties, or what kind of investments do we need to make as a county to have the infrastructure to support that increased density. So no, the master plans have not gone away. I think they still inform much of what we've done, but I think we're moving eventually towards something that is more focused in these, we will continue to have land use recommendations that they had for those lower density neighborhoods, but for the activity center areas, that's what we really need to figure out. What do we need to do? How do we need to change either our land use plan or our zoning ordinance in those areas to help promote the vision that we'll have for them?
Perhaps we should have named them opportunity centers.
Well,
anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just think it was confusing at the CAC, and so I just wanted to bring that up in public.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people that likes to summarize because I think you said it very well, but if I were going to go and talk to the community about, making this decision, what I'm sort of hearing you say, or what I think I'm hearing you say is, we don't want to spend a lot of time with staff and county resources reinventing this plan idea over and over again by holding ourselves to this need to update it every 10 years, which takes a lot of resources when we can actually do planning in a more efficient way.
Yeah, by focusing in on these areas, we would expect and want to see redevelop.
Thank you.
Any other committees? Any other kinds?
I have no CAC because the Route 29 CAC meets on Thursday.
Putting up to all committees.
Oh, well, okay then. LUPEC, the Land Use and Environmental Planning Committee, didn't exactly have a regular meeting. We just took a nice tour of Birdwood over by Boar's Head, which I had not seen since the renovation. And it is quite lovely. There's a part of me that would advocate for having our planning commission meetings there with their fancy little sandwiches instead of our
booth.
But yeah, it was a nice thing to see. Yeah, and also very strange in some ways to see like, oh yeah, this building was a slave quarters and now it's popular for bachelors to stay there for bachelor parties. It's like, okay, that's weird, but yeah, it is a nice facility.
Okay. And if there's no other reports, I can report the sad news that the Historic Preservation Committee did not achieve quorum, so we did not meet on Monday. But anyway, we're doing better in general, but we still have our moments. All right, we'll go on to Mr. Barnes for a review of the Board of Supervisors meeting from August 19.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two items were considered in the afternoon. One was the county's first RHIP, which is the Albemarle, it's our housing, I can never remember that acronym.
Rental assistance, I believe it's
Rental
assistance program.
Yes,
Thank you.
We win. Okay.
So
Okay.
this was for the Attain property, the one that was down on Fifth Street, that you all reviewed towards the end of last year. This is the one that, was Cavalier Crossing at one point, and that the applicants were coming in and using a lot of the excess parking that was on there to, infill with some more buildings.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so
Across from the other county.
Yeah, yeah, now it's
this,
clicking.
it got delayed in part according to the board because the applicant really wanted to make sure that the RHIP application would be in place. So they spent multiple months negotiating that, and then we just went back to the board. With that in the afternoon, the board approved the RHIP application, and incentives, for the property. We also, that afternoon, board received a presentation on the zoning modernization effort that you all had received a couple weeks ago. That evening, we had the public hearing on the Attain ZMA, as well as SEs for parking modification to even further reduce the amount of required parking, as well as waiving the step back waiver requirements. So that also passed that evening. And I will conclude by saying the first thing we did do that afternoon is the VACO, which is Virginia County Virginia Association of Counties, gave an achievement award to my staff for the HC 44. So very proud of the work they did, and of course, by extension, the work that you all on the board did with us too, and the community. So that was great. Thank you.
All right. I keep forgetting I'm supposed to be running this. All right. Sorry. New business.
I do have one thing in new business, and that is you all have received a couple of phishing emails. It's like they start with like a Tara, and another one came up this evening. So please don't open those emails. Just delete them. I've already reported them to IT.
Okay, thank you. I'll just make a really brief new business. I am having my class that I teach at UVA called Green Infrastructure for Cities. We're going to take a look at the urban ring around Charlottesville, our property, like our county, and look at the land cover, how well treated it is, impervious surfaces and stormwater runoff, opportunities for connectivity. And this is work that we're doing using a new 1 meter land resolution map that was created by the Virginia Department of Forestry that I have access to. So we're gonna hopefully take some of the ideas from the comprehensive plan, some of the strategies, and work on some ideas for how these could be actualized. So I hope to have the students come and present to you in December, depending on whether our agenda is more full of serious and urgent issues. If not, then I'll record their presentation and share it with you later. But it is my hope that the students will be able to uncover some new ideas. And of course, this is pro bono. I'm not being paid by the county to do that. I'm just putting on my other hat and taking some UVA resources and trying to direct them towards things we need.
Yeah, real
Yes.
life learning.
That's fantastic.
Might I suggest that you also, if you can, incorporate some of Devin Floyd's, the Discovery Center's data on Piedmont grasslands.
In the urban ring?
Well, I mean, or you're saying like,
I'm saying the students for this semester are just going to look at the urban
oh, they're
ring.
just gonna look at the growth area?
Yes.
Okay.
I have also applied for additional funding to potentially map out large forest areas and forest blocks and corridors in the rural area.
Okay.
That might help with the rural plan, but that's a totally separate proposal. I'm seeing if the Virginia Department of Forestry would be willing to help with that work. So we shall see, but for right now, I can promise that we will take a look at the urban ring and the livability around there.
The urban ring, the other thing that that I wish we had would be like a map of culverted streams.
We can take a look at that. We can look at, I don't know about if they're just a culvert that's going where a road's crossing. I don't know that I have that data. I might be able to get that. Look at Mike, I don't know, but streams that have been undergrounded, often we can pick those out, and certainly sometimes daylighting a creek is an option to try to restore the habitat and improve the water, the floodplain storage of water. So we'll see how granular we can get in the 3 months that we have for the semester. Anything else? Yep. So anyway, it is a student project supervised by myself, but again, I think that they will surface some cool ideas that we can make use of. And I know that Luis also noted that the Office of the Architect at UVA would also be interested, because we're gonna include a lot of land that also is under UVA ownership too, anything that's outside the city. So that's that, but that land cover data exists for all of Virginia. It's just because of my job, I have early access to it. My other job, not this job.
Couldn't think of a better coordinator.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's it. I'll tell you more about that as it shapes up, but we only had one class so far, so we don't have any big ideas yet. That's exciting.
Present to her next week. Come on.
Yeah, they're not being released into the wild, the students, until they know what they're doing. So that's not this month. All right, I'm done. All right. Oh, yeah, I'm still in charge. Okay, so I guess I have to adjourn this meeting. We have no old business. All right, that's the end of the business. I therefore adjourn this meeting of the Planning Commission until Tuesday, September 8th, 2026. Be free.
So